All right. It is Wednesday around 10 a.m., May 13th. And we're going to get another avenue of my screenwriting. We're going to venture towards a new type of experience, which is odd, I guess. But this is really the spirit of this series, the Madman's Daily Unequivocal Comedy. It's the spirit of this entire journey that I started in 2020 writing screenplays. I didn't want to be a one-note writer only using certain tropes. I'm still admitting I use plenty of stereotypical screenwriting tropes to try to form my outlines and stories, and what is my percentage of a stereotypical writer compared to maybe an original voice. I don't know. That's not for me to answer. But I think I've shown that I can provide a pretty unique 50-page story with very little fluff or no fluff at all. No scenes that don't fit. Or if somebody can combat that, then I'm open to debate there. But we've gone through a Western, we've gone through a science fiction story, we've gone through a terrifying horror story in the 80s or in the 90s, whatever it was. We've gone through an animated journey of man and deer. Then we ended up in Scotland with this cursed lake from all the way back where the Druids and the Romans were battling it out in Scotland. And then we went to Philadelphia to finish that story 1,000 years later after all that curse shit happened. And then we went to Atlantic City again for the second time. And we followed Joe as he was training to be the best Olympic marathon runner of all time, or just in general, the best marathon runner of all time, despite his chain smoking addiction and other stuff. It was kind of like Popeye. Instead of spinach, he was just chain smoking. I'm not trying to promote cigarette smoke. Don't get all crazy there. I would be the leading candidate to speak against these addictions just from a waste of money and just from, of course, there's health issues. Whether you get lucky and kind of escape that shit, high percentage of people will get something if they keep smoking throughout their entire life. I'm just basing this on other stuff I've heard from over my entire lifetime. Anyway, then from that story, we went to Todd's fever dream, which we spoke of yesterday, once in a lifetime, led by talking heads, led by just surrealism and just the absurd approach to outlining a script. The whole thing is this. The entire story is a dream sequence, and a very fucked up dream. But hey, who hasn't had a fucked up dream from now and then? It pops up in your head somehow. Maybe as a warning, maybe as a premonition, maybe just your subconscious playing tricks on you to fuck with you. I always go back to that line, often go back to that line from Fight Club. Tyler Durden says, you have to possibly accept the fact that God doesn't like you and that God doesn't give a shit about you. It's not the exact quote, but it's something like that. You have to consider the possibility that God does not like you, or whether God exists or not. People think the positive side of things, but I always kind of like to dive deeper into quotes like that kind of, as an adolescent, when I watched Fight Club, I was probably late teenage years, that quotes like that kind of spark something inside when you don't really deal with philosophy like that until that point. So now, where are we now? We're on episode 9. And it's supposed to be a comedy, This is Rinse and Repeat is the title, part one. And there's a part two right after this. Part two has nothing to do with this story for the most part. Maybe there's some correlations that I kind of sneak in there, but it's two different time periods, and you'll find out hopefully by the end of the day tomorrow, as I get through this one today and part two tomorrow, if I can read the whole thing. I kind of call this a drama. I kind of view it more as a comedy now, and probably an animation. It's almost a tribute to some of my favorite stand-up comedians: Bill Burr's, Jim Gaffigan, Sarah Silverman's, Mitch Hedberg's, Dave Chappelle's, and probably forgetting other people. Maybe that's the top five, I guess. But again, there's George Carlin, and even though Dick Gregory, I don't know any of his stand-up stuff really. I was just thinking this morning as I was eating breakfast that I should try to listen to Dick Gregory stuff from the 60s. Try to get a more clear picture of him as a youth in his younger years, because most of the stuff I heard was from him in his 60s and older, when he was talking about Bill Cosby, conspiracies, and politics. And he was talking about politics back then too, but more about civil rights stuff. There was a hint of like an Alex Jones type of a conspiracy inside of him, but his voice is so interesting that I still listen to that stuff. Like, I listened to Alex Jones back in the day. I remember from that movie, Waking Life, or whatever it's called, and it's got a scene with him. I know Joe Rogan talks about it sometimes. There's some movie with Alex Jones in it as like an animation, and he is doing his normal fear-mongering, but probably a lot of truth in there. Alex Jones movie, Waking Life, which I vaguely remember it from 2001. Waking Life's like an animation, and I probably need to watch it again. Now I'm reading it. It's about free will and reality and consciousness, the meaning of life. So these are all things I just spent the entire day yesterday talking about, especially free will. Richard Linklater, Ethan Hawke, Julie Delphi. I know that name. I can't put the face to the name. But yeah, it's a pretty badass movie that I gotta watch again. Especially, that's cool that I just brought this up without really, I didn't mean to bring this movie up. But maybe the animation in Rinse and Repeat Part 1 can be kind of connected to the type of animation in Waking Life, because I did enjoy that. They called it a fantasy and a thriller. It's almost 2 hours long, Waking Life from 2001. So maybe I'll watch that today if I can find it on streaming. Yeah, the Alex Jones, I know he's had a lot of controversial stuff in his life, but you can't deny he's an entertaining dude, just like Glenn Beck was. Even if you don't agree with them, or they kind of make you want to vomit certain rabbit holes they go down. They're like Sam Kinison. He was a preacher before he became a comedian. They have those voices that can just rile people up for better or worse. Almost like the Coast to Coast that I talked about. Used to listen to that radio show, but that was different. It was more just about alien shit. But I think he kind of went down those avenues too. I never really got into that stuff too much. But there is a stand-up comedy there a pretty strong element actually throughout this story. I needed to put some dialogue and comic relief, so I was like, how am I going to do this? And you'll see what I'm talking about later. This is a very odd type of outline that I came up with, and there are maybe 4 or 5 pages where there's no dialogue at all. It's just storytelling. And it was difficult. Alex Jones' movie Waking Life. I just want to read some of the lines from that because I think there's some lines that kind of probably stayed with me subconsciously. If I can find the transcript of it. Maybe I can find it here. Hold on 1 second, sorry. It's just in my head now. I was probably in college and I saw Waking Life, or maybe after. And it just stayed kind of with me, I think. I don't think I'm going to find this. If you've never seen that movie, and I only watched it once, I'm going to have to watch it again. What a bunch of garbage, liberal, Democrat, conservative, Republican. It's all there to control you. Two sides of the same coin, two management teams bidding for control. The CEO job of Slavery Incorporated. That's from the Alex Jones part. So that's typical stuff that you hear on shows like that. And I get into that. I really do. I don't know about you, but I'm concerned with what's happening in this world. I want freedom. It's up to each and every one of us to not allow ourselves to be crammed into this rat maze. Yeah, these are not new concepts. They're not really even that radical. This type of uniquely don't tread on me American philosophy that it's bred when you're born in America. Yeah, everything is freedom, freedom, freedom. That's the beauty of it. Uh, I don't know how to really go deeper because this is a complicated conversation and it's going to go into the First Amendment and Second Amendment. And where's the line drawn in a free country? You want to end up like Kensington with people shooting up fentanyl in the middle of the street like zombies? Where's the line of freedom, man? You keep talking about this don't tread on me shit, but do you really know what that means? You better go buy a gun, man. You're going to venture to the West Coast, people are going to take you and take your organs out and sell them on the black market, and you'll be left in a bathtub full of ice with no kidneys, no liver. Maybe they'll leave one kidney inside of you if they're nice people. The don't tread on me, in theory, it sounds great, yeah. Everyone, don't fuck with your neighbor. It's almost like the golden rule. I don't think it's that difficult to connect don't tread on me to the golden rule. Treat your neighbor as you want to be treated. That's almost the same exact thing. Don't put your bullshit on other people. Very simple concept that you don't need somebody like Alex Jones ranting and raving about. Anyone can really practice that if you really want to. But some people live off that shit. Sadly, there's drama queens and drama kings that look for that type of conflict because their lives are empty, or that's how they actually build up their persona by putting other people down or fucking with other people for whatever fucking reason. A lot of people never really explain their motivations other than, hey, that's just life, man. Going back to man and deer, and man is like this little child asking dog, why is life so complicated when you get older? Like he's an 8-year-old kid asking God that question. And how does dog answer that? I forget. But something stupid, I'm sure. Something stupid. Something very stranger than fiction. That's just life, man. He said something like that. And that's just life, man. What did you expect? Lightning bolts shooting out from my ass? The version of God that I connected to that story was a very laissez-faire God. That free will is the ultimate foundation of human consciousness. God is there. And God maybe pays attention to Earth once a month or once a year because he's got other pressing matters, or he or she, sorry, feminist. God could be sexless. He could be anything. It could be a dog, a Rottweiler dog, like I presented it. Dogs are like gods to a lot of people. But in a laissez-faire approach to the universe, yeah, free will is everything. You have to put your foot in the ground, say what you want to do in life, and hopefully you're in control of that path. Not easy for anybody. Not easy for anybody to do that. I don't even care if you are a Donald Trump and you're born into a rich family of real estate moguls and you're able to be supported by your father or whatever Trump's story is to build his casino empire. Like, he still has to have the motivation to go do that and set a path to go do that. Or the poor man who has to work in a fucking factory all day, he could just give up. I'm not really making sense here. I don't know what I'm trying to relate this to, because I don't think anyone sets that path for themselves. Not that there's anything wrong with that lifestyle. I want that type of a job right now where I have no management responsibilities. I'm just a worker bee. That's what I want, because I don't want to deal with all the headaches of people and all the politics and all the stupid shit that I've encountered at the last job I was at. I never want to deal with people's bullshit like that. It's not just a headache, it's a mental breakdown. At least during COVID it was. So of course I just want a simple job at this point. Well, what I really want is to do my Kickstarter project, but I don't see the path for that yet, where I can live off the grid in the desert of New Mexico or Arizona or Texas even, and just make art for the next 20 years and make my own path in life to the most obscene degree, where I don't even pay attention to all this noise on the news anymore. I'll hear the news in passing and I'm like, what the fuck? It's just, how does anybody want to pay attention to this shit? Unless you're in that, if you are an Alex Jones or a radio commentator or someone in that business, yeah, you have to pay attention. Even a stand-up comedian, you have to kind of stay on top of relevant issues. Like a South Park, they make episodes about what's in the news that week or month. And they try to push the boundaries as far as they can, putting new stakes in the ground to say comedy should not be restricted at all. Everything should be up for criticism and social commentary. So there's a heroic type of nobility towards comedians like that don't want to play it safe. It is bravery. Like, I'm not comparing it to a soldier or a police officer who has to put their lives in danger, but I guess you can point back to Lenny Bruce's of the world and people that push the envelope so other people can reap the benefits of that labor, so people can keep pushing and pushing until comedy becomes that one haven of art that's never going to be tainted by political correctness and all these holier than thou fake people. It is a plastic type of a bubble wrap. If you put that over a comedian and bubble wrap them and say, nah, you shouldn't talk about this, you can't use that language, you can't do that, you should worry about how people are going to perceive this joke. And sure, I'm sure comedians do, because they want to make money. They want to have a wide demographic that listens to them. And if they say the wrong thing, who knows? Then it becomes like a domino effect. Well, you lost this group, and now this group is going to put you on your last legs. You say one more bad thing, you're going to lose them. And then this identity group, they're going to fucking turn on you sooner or later, just because of one joke that was taken out of context or whatever. You are no longer able to make a living telling these stupid jokes anymore. Like, would George Carlin have gotten canceled if he was around during all that cancel culture shit? Or other more radical, even Eddie Murphy got pretty obscene. I don't know Richard Pryor. I don't think I've ever heard Richard Pryor stand up other than a couple of jokes here and there. But I've heard like almost everything George Carlin has ever done. And I wouldn't call him really a radical, but he does go into places that make people uncomfortable about social status and politics, foreign conflicts, and the owners of this country. I like that bit that he does. We're all just guests at this party, or whatever you want to call it. All right, he has a good line like that. Maybe I could close this little preamble with that. The owners of this country want you to, they give you the illusion of choice. And then, yeah, let me see if I can find that. I really have it in my brain right now. George Carlin, owners of this country. All right, let's see what this goes. It's from the 2005 HBO special, Life is Worth Losing. I don't know if they're going to quote anything here. But you get it. It's a very similar argument that you even hear today. Well, he's talking about the one percenters back in 2005. That was the whole Bernie Sanders thing. It's still a relevant political philosophy, I guess. He's talking about the rigged system, which was Trump's big thing. Everything's rigged. Elections are rigged. Government's rigged. Opportunities are rigged. So it's nothing new. Even when Trump was doing that shit, you could compare him to past demagogues. Yeah, that's the right word, right? Demagogue. Trump is kind of a demagogue during his rallies. It wasn't exactly like peace and love fest. Demagogue. I think that's a correct word, a loudmouth. Yeah, a lot of people describe Trump as a modern American demagogue who utilizes divisive rhetoric. Well, of course, the Mexicans, all the ICE shit, personal attacks, definitely the Rubio shit he did, or Ted Cruz. I think he said Ted Cruz's family were like responsible for the JFK assassination or some shit. It's not really funny, but if somebody said that about Trump, he would have like sued them that night. Like Bill Maher called Trump like an ape, and he got sued for that shit. Yeah, so I could see it. Demagoguery. Yeah, it's just I don't know the right way to describe it. Or other people throughout the history, talking heads, politicians that just rile people up like that. It's not just a Republican thing. There's plenty of Democrats that probably use that type of appeal in certain segments of the population. But yeah, it's more about emotion than a rational discussion. You want to rile people up and play that type of be the beacon for the despondent and angry. And that's what Trump really planted his flag on, I guess. But why am I talking about demagoguery? The George Carlin thing, yeah. If George Carlin, half of his stuff was coming out today, I don't know if it would be, because it's still definitely relevant. There's no doubt that politics in general follows a very predictable cycle in some regards. Yeah, there's some things you can't prepare for, but in terms of the political discourse that we find ourselves in today, which, again, I don't pay attention to the news, so I don't know where exactly we fall right now. If the next election was right now, I don't even know how it would go, because I don't have a grip on the political climate, what people are feeling, not even in my town or my state. I have no idea. So it's a weird time, but I think it turns a lot of people off. I just don't want to waste my brain seeing these images on the news or hearing people, the newscasters, just talk bullshit like that. It's not all like that, but so much of it is just as divisive as a Trump rally. You listen to the news, you're gonna feel like that disconnect, that you're supposed to have an enemy, foreign and domestic. What, you're into politics, but you don't hate people? Don't you know you have to hate the other side? That's the only way to survive in the current political situation we find ourselves in. Like, it's a broken message that most people turn off eventually. And that's the main reason I don't like talking about politics, but I always end up putting my stupid notions in there somehow. But at least this story won't bring up any of these things. I'm bringing up politics because of George Carlin. Once you mention George Carlin, it brings up all of these bits that he did about put all the homeless people on golf courses and how there's an illusion of choice. It's not an American dream. It's because everyone's sleeping. Or he had a line like that. I'm bad when I try to do stand-up comedy. It's all about timing and rhythm and finding a voice. And I've not practiced to be a stand-up comedian. But there's probably 4 bits throughout this script that are based on some of the comedians that I love. And I'll try to get through those the best I can. I'm going to start reading now. I'm right on the first page here, page 2. And to warn everyone, the tribal dialogue, because this is going to deal with these tribal people that live in caves. That's the main characters, really. There's a ton of flashbacks, and we see characters from other episodes sometimes. But these main characters are tribal cave people, and they don't speak English. They just grunt, and I had to kind of make up a language. Most likely, maybe you need subtitles, but no, I don't think so, actually. They're just grunting. Do you need to put grunts on the screen? So I don't even think you need subtitles. You're just going to have to, as an actor, well, again, this is an animation, sorry. So if you view this as an animation, it's really not that difficult to put a story like this together. We're going to begin this story now, fading in to a marshland as we follow Lamb in his 50s. He's a primitive shaman dressed in animal skins. As he explores the wilderness around him, he collects herbs and plant stems and flowers and places them in his small bucket made from repurposed plastic bottles, then gazes happily towards the clouds. That's our first clue that even though this looks like it would have happened thousands of years ago, or longer than that, millions of years ago, dinosaur times, even though that's what it looks like, that's how Lamb is dressed and his appearance as a primitive man. But he has plastic bottles. He has a bucket made from like old Pepsi bottles. And you're like, what the fuck? Are we in the past or are we in the future? Lamb is now humming a cheery melody to himself as he walks through some trees towards a hidden clearing where he's shocked to discover a huge field of wild, colorful mushrooms. He picks one of the mushrooms up, sniffs it, licks the spots, then holds it above his head as the sun beams a halo onto the top. He takes a small bite now, then places a handful of mushrooms into his bucket while resuming his humming. A few hours later, Lamb is sleeping peacefully in the field of mushrooms, half-eaten mushroom tops and stems all over his body, or on his chest, like he was laying on his back eating these mushrooms. As we drift closer to his shut eyes, we're going into a dream sequence right on this first page here. Lamb's Dream. Again, the musical inspiration is the Kink's Lola Versus Powerman and the Moneygoround Part 1. And all the songs I'm going to recommend for this episode, is from that album, Ape Man, and I don't know if I use Lola, but this one's A Long Way From Home. I would recommend using the Kink song, A Long Way From Home, during this dream sequence. Lamb is levitating through the blue sky, guided by a warm golden glow, as he's passing apes dressed in business attire who sit at desks atop the fluffy clouds. They're typing in computer codes onto their laptops, answering calls with their headsets, like heaven had an IT department in the clouds. Again, this is an animation, so keep that in mind. You could do this as creatively as your heart desires because it's an animation. He floats towards one of the suited apes who's making copies of a colorful butterfly photo. The butterfly copy magically comes to life when it emerges from the paper slot, while Lamb dances beneath the colorful psychedelic wing designs. He's making copies of butterfly pictures, and as he does that, they're coming to life in this psychedelic dream. The butterflies now lead him to a large door on a cloud, which opens on its own, as all the butterflies float towards the bright starlight within. We're now in space, as the colorful butterflies are guiding Lamb past comets, meteor showers, and psychedelic streaks of colorful light, stopping next to a constellation of a woman playing a violin. Back to Lori's story. As a giant mushroom top covers the planet Earth behind him, he's now meditating in front of the constellation, sitting cross-legged with his eyes shut, while a group of apes in spacesuits zip over him and write musical notations with their jetpacks. After a few moments, Lamb opens his eyes, as the butterflies are now guiding him towards a huge whirlpool of psychedelic lights, where he is completely immersed in the tie-dyed insanity. Moving on in his dream, we're now at a comedy club. Lamb is sitting down at a table eating a mushroom in front of the stage, while various dinosaurs in casual attire smoke and drink at their tables nearby, staring towards the female ape comedian on stage. Again, I'm going to do my best to do a comedy routine here. He's watching this ape comedian who's beginning her bit. It's a female ape comedian. And then the asteroid crashed to Earth and said, "Hey, at least I remembered to shower." She laughs at her lame joke hysterically, while the dinosaurs in the room do not find it funny at all and boo ape comedian. Come on, guys. Still sensitive about that whole asteroid thing? I think it's time we all move past that entire mass extinction event. The dinosaurs launch food and drinks towards the stage, while the comedian ape is ducking from the projectiles. Ape comedian: "Did you hear the one about the latest flood myth? God must have had one too many that night, if you know what I mean." Louder boos and hisses erupt from the dinosaurs. Ape comedian: "Ooh, tough room, I tell ya." Lamb eats his mushroom calmly as she tries to save her act. Ape comedian: "But seriously, folks, what's the deal with this whole ancient alien shit? Last time I checked, the only alien around here was this loopy motherfucker." She walks down and points to Lamb, places her arm around him. Ape comedian: "I'm just joshing you, buddy. Isn't that what family's for? You seem like a good sport. Come on, let's hear it for him, folks." The dinosaurs change their mood and now cheer loudly for Lamb. Ape comedian: "This fucker over here evolved from me. Can you believe that shit? Because I even doubt it myself sometimes." Now, she pulls Lamb from his chair and parades him around the room. Ape comedian. He looks more like what would be created if Barney Rubble had a love child with Charles Manson. No offense, my brother, but have you looked in a mirror lately? If we're related, I can only hope that another asteroid is on its way. The dinosaurs now laugh even louder, while she leans in closer to him, ape comedian, whispering into Lamb's ear, "Save the child." That is the end of Lamb's dream, which was kind of long to introduce his character here. You could call it a dream, you could call it he just ate a shit ton of mushrooms that he didn't know would do this to him, because it's not like these people would know certain mushrooms give you these psychedelic voyages. So it's a daydream, it's a drug hallucination. He's meeting the machine elves in his head, and really the only thing of substance to the plot is that last line when the female ape comedian whispers, "Save the child." All right, hopefully that's not too confusing. Hopefully you get kind of where I'm going with this comedy. All right. Later that day, Lamb wakes up and he's munching on more mushrooms while resting on the shore. His bucket by his side, full of mushrooms, other herbs and flowers, colorful flowers. He walks to the calm water, his mind still in an altered state as he stares deeply towards his reflection. In his perception, two beautiful young hippie women dressed in 1960s hippie attire emerge from the water and guide him seductively back to the shore, where they giggle and grab some mushrooms from his bucket. They all sit by the river, eating mushrooms together, as Lamb is laughing merrily with his new hallucinated friends. A short time later, the two hippie women are performing a short selection from God's Children by the Kinks, one playing an acoustic guitar, the other shaking a fancy tambourine, while Lamb dances around them, clapping his hands to the beat. This is the hippie women singing together. Again, these are just hallucinations from Lamb's mushroom trip here. Man made the buildings that reach for the sky, and man made the motor car and learned how to drive. But he didn't make the flowers and he didn't make the trees. All right, so they're singing that song, these two hippie women, as Lamb is grabbing colorful flowers and tossing them in the air like a child at play. Then he's watching them rain down onto him, appearing like vivid, colorful streaks of light in his distorted perception as the hippie women continue singing. And he didn't make you and he didn't make me, and he's got no right to turn us into machines. No, he's got no right at all, 'cause we are all God's children. All right, just another drug trip of a scene there. Kind of make the audience fall more in love with this Lamb character. He's just eating mushrooms all day and living like a hippie. A little time later, short time later, Lamb is by the river with these same hippie women by his side. They're all covered by these colorful flowers and these half-eaten mushrooms. Now Lamb is humming the chorus of God's Children as the sun beams down onto his happy face until he shuts his eyes while we drift towards the empty bucket next to him. So I think it's kind of cool. What if you have a drug hallucination or a dream and you hear a song like the Kinks' God's Children, or any song that's an actually recorded song, and then it becomes a part of you. You start singing it the next morning, never really hearing it in the real world, but somehow it's a part of your brain now because you heard it in a dream. Sometimes I write music in my dreams, or I have a melody that I like, but I'll forget it the next day. And I'm like, shit, I know I dreamt about a song, but I forget how it goes. And you can never get that back unless you wake up like right during the dream. Maybe you could, like I think that was the story of, what's that song by the Rolling Stones? guess Satisfaction, yeah. I guess that riff came to one of the guitarists. I forget the story now. I want to look it up so I'm not just making shit up. Was the riff... Sorry, I know I'm not supposed to do this often. It kind of makes people probably like just get to the story, idiot. Was the riff to Satisfaction? But now it's going to bug me if I don't look this up. Was the riff to Satisfaction written after a dream? And see if that helps me solve this riddle. But I've heard that in other instances as well. Maybe even Hey Jude. Keith Richards, I couldn't even think of his name. Keith Richards famously wrote the iconic riff, the in his sleep. All right, there you go. I didn't make this up. He dreamed the melody, woke up in his hotel room in May 1965, and recorded it onto a cassette player. Then he fell back asleep. That's pretty cool, man. Hopefully that's the truth. I don't think you would... Why would you make that up? I guess it gives the song more mystique, more of an intrigue that he wrote this in his sleep. That's pretty badass, man. Anyway, let's continue. Page 5 here. We're still with Lamb as he's waking up alone near the river. His bucket still next to him, filled with mushrooms, herbs, and flowers, just like before his hallucination. We're still in the daytime. He's getting up in a state of confusion, gazing around for the hippie women, but they're nowhere to be found. He walks into the water, stares at his reflection, hoping to find the women again, because previously they emerged from the water of the lake. Alright. And then he gives up and he picks up his bucket and walks away. That night we're at a cave and we're going to meet a lot of people here, so kind of bear with me as I introduce 6 characters at once. You could look at this like a Disney movie almost at this point, where we meet a whole tribe of like our cave ancestors, and we meet an entire family in one scene, and you just kind of have to picture all these people in your head now. It's a little bit more difficult when you deal with a screenplay. When you're watching a movie, you see how the writers and animators put all this shit together to make it more clear. And you could separate characters much easier. But from a screenwriter's perspective, people read this script when I first did my first version of it, which was really confusing to read. I could barely read it. I never wanted to read this one or return to it because I knew it wasn't good enough. And then this is the version that came after maybe 20 edits, trying to add more things, trying to make it easier to read. So we're inside this cave that night, exploring the cave as a small campfire is the only light kind of leading us through this cave. There's primitive drawings of pigs, stick figures holding spears, and the flames of a campfire kind of sketched on the cave wall. These cave drawings, a rising sun, and a huge electrical tower with lightning bolts striking the top. These are all cave drawings. Lamb and his tribe rest around the small fire on beds of straw and grass, all primitively dressed in furs, some with rotting and missing teeth, others with muddy skin and hairy bodies. Very primitive. I don't know if you call them, I guess, ancestors, but this is kind of like the same effect as Planet of the Apes, where we're actually in the future, not the past. And I don't think I'm giving anything away, because already we've seen Lamb carrying a bucket made of Pepsi bottles that he probably found somewhere. These are our ancestors after we nuked each other or destroyed the planet somehow, or maybe it was a natural disaster. These are the surviving ancestors of us, maybe 1,000 years from now, when after the nuclear fallout, these people were able to survive, but they lost our history, they lost our language, And we're meeting this tribe now of 6 people. We already met Lamb, so it's actually 7 people. Lamb is the elder shaman. Kalam, Calam, is Lamb's son and the muscular alpha in his 30s. Pag is Kalam's wife, and she's blind in her 30s. Bu is Kalam and Pag's daughter, very strong-willed, kind of Disney princess warrior, and she's 12 years old. Sep is a weak, frail male in his 30s. Aura is his wife, and she's in her 30s. And Blad is kind of an oafish, muscular teenager, the son of Sep and Aura. So the 2 young people are Bu and Blad. Bu is the strong-willed 12-year-old girl who's kind of mostly connected to Lamb, and they go on adventures together. Blad is kind of the oafish, really strong teenage boy that is stronger than he knows what to do with his strength at this point in his life. Maybe not the most intelligent. And then there's Sep and Aura and Pag and Callum. So hopefully you could remember these characters to some degree as I go through the rest of this. The main characters are really Bu and Lamb. And later on, Calum has more of a role as well. But they all have some role in this story. How did I come up with these names or the language? I just was like, how would these grunting people speak? They would be like Pag, Kalam, Bu, Sep, Ora, Blad. Yeah. If any of them sound overly stupid, and they could be changed later, but I don't know. I'm inventing a caveman language. Is there any rules and grammar for shit like that? No. So, it is what it is. Yeah, and actors and actresses can improvise stuff if they think something better. Bu is resting on the bed of straw, staring at the tiny fish swimming in her plastic bottle fish tank. So she has one of those large Gatorade bottles or a gallon container, plastic container, and there's fish inside. She's filling up a larger Gatorade bottle with the water from the smaller bottle to give the fish more room. All right, now she's placing the bottle of fish down, and she's rolling over onto her mother, Pag, who's half asleep, cuddled closely in Callum's chest. Startled, Pag reaches her hand out and blindly touches Bu's smiling face. Pag. Bu, Dorpa. That just means stop, or sleep. Go to sleep. Bu, go to sleep. Bu plays with her necklace made of shells. So she's playing with her mother's necklace made of shells and small bits of plastic and colorful stones. Like, what would these people 2,000 years after humanity destroyed itself, whoever survived, these ancestors of ours from 2,000 years from now, or even longer maybe, what would they think plastic is? They'd be like, I guess it's just a mineral from God. What would they think all of the remnants of the cities are? Or the fucking electrical tower, which plays a big role in this. You have no idea what electricity is or our past history, how we utilize electricity. It's a totally lost humanity. No idea what cities were or languages. And that's where I'm going for here. All right. So what are we leave? Bu is playing with the necklace, and she's saying "Pronta, pronta," which means play. She wants to play with her mother, but her mother's just shoving her away and saying, "Go to sleep, Bu." Dorpa, Bu. Bu sighs, and then she tries to go back to sleep, but she's too full of energy. So she jumps onto Blad's bed as he's swatting at flies buzzing around his face. So Lamb is just like the elder kind of hippie shaman guy. He's smacking himself harder in the nose as he tries to squash one of the flies. Sep and Aura laugh at him, cuddled closely together in their own bed of straw, while this is Blad, not Lamb. She's trying to play with Blad, but Blad is trying to squat these flies on his face. See, this is why it's difficult to remember all these characters. Sep and Aura are laughing at their son Blad as he's swatting flies. He's embarrassed, so he shoves Bew off his bed, curls up in the fetal position, and tries to sleep. Bew sighs again and looks for somebody else to play with. And then she watches her fish swim. Then she notices Lamb walking towards the cave entrance, humming the melody of God's children, and she follows him with her fish tank. She clumsily knocks over some firewood as Pag rises angrily from her bed. And remember, Pag is blind, but she doesn't need sight to know who calls the racket. Pag. Bew, Dorpa, go to sleep. That's what it's translating to. Bew doesn't respond. So, yeah, if you don't get... I made up a language because they don't have English or any language, so I just made up stuff. And then I had to put a translation of what my made-up language means. And there's not a lot of it. I didn't go J.R. Tolkien here and create like an entire language and world. It's a very quickly put together experience like that of linguistics. Bew doesn't respond as she quickly follows after Lamb, hidden in the shadows, and Pag goes back to sleep. Outside the cave that night, Lamb is on the bed of grass, a small fire burning in the pit by him. He digs out some mushrooms out of the dirt, chews on one, so he buried these mushrooms in the dirt for safekeeping, and now he's eating them. And he's gazing at the stars as he hums the melody of God's children once again. Bew is curiously watching him from the cave entrance, holding her fish tank, as he chews another mushroom and shuts his eyes. So he's probably just discovering now these mushrooms. He didn't know they existed. If a primitive person, like the Terence McKenna thing, the stoned ape theory, primitive people found these hallucinogenic, psychedelic mushrooms, what would that do to a primitive person's brain? It would open up different windows of the past, because mushrooms are kind of a network of consciousness. Maybe these mushrooms are holding thousands of years of human history and opening up Lamb's mind to how our ancestors lived. But I'm talking about ancestors. I'm talking about like myself and our generation. These are our ancestors from 2,000 years in the future. So he's living through these mycelium networks and going on these mushroom trips to kind of experience how we lived and learning about our history like that. In a way, it's kind of like that. All right. In his dream now, he's down by the ocean as the calm waves roll onto a desolate beach under the bright starry sky. And the beach is littered with piles of plastic waste. Suddenly, the sky turns black as storm clouds form and bolts of lightning flash in the dark water. A massive whirlpool emerges from deep within the ocean, swirling faster and faster, sucking up a huge area of water into the sky, while exposing the floor like Moses parting the Red Sea. A monstrous foot walks upon the narrow ocean passageway as we back away to reveal a gigantic, hideous amphibian cyclops who stretches out its muscular arms like it has been asleep for centuries, then screams in a deafening high-pitched wail, and like a banshee scream. As we drift high above, an army of hundreds of gigantic cyclops march towards the beach. That's the end of his dream. This is a dream I actually did have. I had a dream like that where a cyclops was talking to me and warning me that this army is going to come fuck humanity up. All the ocean waves went to the sky, and then this army of cyclops started marching towards the beach like that to take over the world for the cyclops race. I don't fucking know. maybe I watched something that night or that day. Why am I thinking about Cyclops? I don't know. So it was interesting enough to put it in here. He's just dreaming about maybe that's how the world ended. Maybe maybe my dream is actually representative of how this universe actually ended in this imaginative retelling of how humanity, it wasn't a nuclear war, it was this army of Cyclops, and it happened in every ocean across the world, and they just totally crushed human beings, and what happened to them later, whatever, man. I don't have to get this deep into it. I don't even know if that's really what I'm going for. All right, now we're waking up the next morning as the sun rises. Lamb wakes up, sits up in a panic, breathing heavily, as the fire still burns a little bit in the pit near him, tended by Bew, who's throwing a few branches onto it. Lamb wipes mushroom stems off his chest, stares towards the clouds, which form into the hideous Cyclops creatures from his dream. Bew grabs her small spear and playfully charges at him while he's distracted by his morning hallucination. She kicks his shin, karate chops his chest, then somersaults onto him, playfully ramming his ribs with a wooden end. He plays along, falls over onto his side, and pretends to moan in pain. She tosses her spear away and bends down by his side, afraid she really hurt him, while he jumps up and carries her around the fire like a football, as she laughs in glee. After a few quick laps, he tires himself out, places her down, and grabs his lower back in pain. He sits down on a log around the fire, catches his breath, as she grabs her spear off the ground and sits next to him, resting her head in his lap. He smiles, places his arm around her, and feels her bicep as she flexes. Lamb, Bew, Tostad Strakai, and it's translated to like, Bew, too strong for me. So I guess maybe you could put these subtitles, or the audience can just see this older man feeling his granddaughter's arm muscle, her bicep, and saying, Bew, Tostad Strakai, and maybe they can put the context together. I don't know. Because I feel like it's stupid to make up a fake language, like that Quest for Fire movie, I think it's called, from the 80s. And then you put subtitles to a made-up language. I guess so. I guess you could do it. If you want to make it as clear as possible for the viewing audience. But remember, this is an animation, so yeah. I think people realize what they're going to experience in this short episode, hour-long journey through this made-up animated universe. Lamb rises now. He's still rubbing his lower back. It's kind of sore. And then he lays on the grass, staring at the clouds, munching on more mushrooms, while Bew is practicing more warrior moves around him, the morning light illuminating the marshland in the distance. This scene is just to set up the relationship between Bew and Lamb, the shaman, her grandfather, and she's like 12 years old, and they just have a connection, and they like to play with one another and just mess around like that. So they have a pretty strong connection. Now we're inside the cave. I guess the next day, or later that day, yeah. Later that day, the entire tribe, the 7-person tribe, is kneeling in front of the electrical tower, drawing on the wall, like they were attending a mass as they bow down before it, everyone together. Vita Kara, which means carry the light. So I guess you do need to put subtitles through these lines of dialogue. Callum rises and grabs his long spear with intricate lightning bolts etched in the wooden base. He taps the spearhead on top of the tower, on top of the tower drawing of the electrical tower, and he shuts his eyes. Callum, Kara Spratutukstrak, which means light, grant us strength. So this is like their homemade religion. Their god is the electric tower somewhere in the marshland. He opens his eyes and pounds his chest, reaffirming his alpha status, while Lamb is off in his own world, chewing on a mushroom and staring towards the tower drawing. In his perception, the stick figures come to life and dance around the tower, holding hands, stomping their feet in unison. Now he sees huge lightning bolts striking the top of the electrical tower, lighting it up like a Christmas tree with streaks of colorful psychedelic lights. Still in a daze, Lamb walks to the cave drawing. Just as a large circular glowing object descends towards the top of the tower, he reaches for the object, but it blinds his eyes, while the others continue their group chant behind him, Rest of Tribe. Kara Spratut Tukstrak, translating to light, grant us strength. Caleb notices Lamb's weird disposition, acting weirder than usual, and he gently places his hand on his shoulder, knocking him out of his daze as the cave wall drawing now returns back to normal even in Lamb's perception. He now leads him back to the others, and the tribal chant continues, while Lamb sneaks away, grabs another mushroom, and chews on it. This scene is just to set up that this electrical tower is a major symbol in this. And in another episode, Garrity, the finale of this series, of this season, hopefully not this series, I want to make maybe 3 or 4 more seasons of this. And the electrical tower is like their god. Maybe it does. Maybe it got struck by lightning once and it lit up like a god. And they look at this metal structure. It must have been made by God. How could human beings have created this very tall electrical tower, which they just view it as this metal structure, like a Stonehenge? All the shit that people would find if all of this world got destroyed, but there's going to be ruins of all these artifacts of skyscrapers and electrical towers and amazing monuments of people. People might think Abraham Lincoln, I always say Lincoln, Abraham Lincoln. They're going to find his monument and think he was like some kind of a god, like a Greek god or something. Because they're not going to remember the history. All the books are gone in this scenario. And they'll find all these crazy monuments, if the Washington Monument's still there. And they'll be like, what the fuck? It must have been aliens, man. How could humans have created this shit? Well, maybe the same thing happened with the pyramids. People don't know how the pyramids got created. Well, maybe they did have machinery and different things. I know I'm speaking ancient alien shit right now. But who knows, man? Aliens came down and said, yeah, we could help you build this shit. Who the fuck knows? Like, any conversation about ancient aliens is going to be taken with a huge amount of cynicism from myself, because I think it's really just about making money at this point. Shows like that, people write books about that. It's interesting, and I do enjoy it a lot. The Graham Hancock stuff about ancient civilizations that we forgot about, that are being uncovered now, that might tell a different story of the human evolution, or how advanced people really were back then. All right, so yeah, this scene is just to show they view this electrical tower as their god, or some kind of a symbol for God. All right, now we're at a river. Later that day, we're on page 9. Lamb is humming a melody to himself, a very happy melody. Maybe he keeps humming God's Children, biting into a mushroom again. So I guess he's kind of addicted to the feeling that these mushrooms are giving him. Like he's becoming their messenger almost. He's becoming one with the mushroom and experiencing reality through this network of mycelium inside of his consciousness now. He's become one with the mushroom machine elves, the Terrence McKenna version of a trip he termed the machine elves. And he's also picking large leaves from the shore and placing them into his bucket because he's still the shaman of this tribe, so he probably knows all about medicine. So of course he'd be the one to experiment with mushrooms, and he's the shaman. And he's experiencing the effects of hallucinogenics, psychedelics, for the first time, and he's the test case to experiment on this stuff before he shares them with anybody else, because that's what a shaman would do, I guess. Especially one that's has to train him or herself. There's no past knowledge, really. All right. He's now back on the shore, laying down and staring at the clouds in a daze, as the clouds slowly morph into the shape of an angel with rays of golden light glowing all around. Suddenly, a frog leaps by him and croaks, snapping him from his daze. He now walks towards a shining glass object in the mud nearby, bends down, and finds a small stopwatch. He inspects it, winds it, bites it, then opens it. Amazed at the intricate gears inside, he buries the watch deeper into the mud, like he was planting a seed, then lays back down on the grass, bites into another mushroom, and shuts his eyes. All right. Why didn't he keep the watch? I don't know why I really put that there. So it's almost like that story that creationists will tell about the watchmaker. Somebody finds a watch in the sand and they say that there must be a creator for this. It's a valid argument, but I know there's plenty of debates on both sides of that. It doesn't mean that necessarily. I'm not going to get into a conversation like that. The watchmaker, it is kind of a creationist leading argument, right? If somebody finds a watch with all these intricate gears in the sand and they don't know what it is, they're going to think somebody must have created this. I guess that's the argument for creationism, but I don't know this enough to talk about. All right. Lamb is dreaming again, but we don't know it yet. From that scene where he buries the watch into the mud like he's planting a seed, we're going to go back in time now, as 3 teenage boys are sitting on a couch watching Dazed and Confused. Well, we do know Lamb is dreaming, because after he buried the watch, he's laying on the ground, chewing on a mushroom, and he shuts his eyes. This is Lamb's dream of these 3 teenage boys on a couch, and they're watching Dazed and Confused on the flat screen TV on the wall, as the stoner character on the screen speaks about the alien conspiracies. So it's the scene in Dazed and Confused where that one stoner guy's like, that song's about aliens, man. Martha Washington. She was a badass woman. I can't repeat it. It's been a while since I watched Dazed and Confused, but it's a perfect movie. If I can't get the rights to show something like that, you just have to put something else there. That's all. But I thought it would be funny to incorporate Dazed and Confused into this. Teenage boy 1 places his plate down on the table with a partially eating peanut butter jelly and magic mushroom sandwich. Teenage boy 1. Fuck this. I'm not even feeling anything, man. I typo there. Teenage boy 1. Fuck this shit. I'm not even feeling anything, man. Teenage boy 2. Me neither. How do you even know this shit is legit? Teenage boy 3 holds up a plastic bag full of mushrooms and takes one out and is inspecting it. Teenage boy 3. How the hell am I supposed to know? My brother said it would kick in right after. Teenage boy 1. Well, I don't buy it, man. We should have just made him buy us some beer or Jägermeister. A hand reaches for the partially eating mushroom sandwich. Teenage boy 2 towards the unseen man. What about you, man? You feel anything yet? We now view Lamb, still in his animal furs, seated casually in a chair near the teens. He shrugs his shoulders calmly in response to the question, then bites into the mushroom sandwich curiously. Lamb, while chewing, and he's not even understanding what he's saying because he doesn't know English, so he says, fuck this. And then he's like, makes a face, like, why am I saying this? I don't even know what these words are. But he's in his dream, so anything's possible. The mushrooms are guiding him back to this time. Maybe that's an experience of somebody who lived in this area like thousands of years ago. And it's a part of the mushroom network now. And these 3 teenage boys and Lamb are just hanging out, eating a mushroom peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And they sit there in silence, watching more of Dazed and Confused. Teenage boy 1, just give it some more time. It'll kick in eventually. They watch more of the movie in silence. Teenage boy 3, you want to go sniff some glue in the garage? The teens eye each other, ponder for a few seconds, then rise and scamper away, leaving Lamb all alone as he watches the movie and eats more of the sandwich. That's the end of this dream. So we're getting weird. This was a later scene that I added way after I wrote this. I was like, I need to put something to show the mushroom connection and how the mushroom is opening Lamb's eyes to a different time in the history of humanity. It's probably like in the 90s or early 2000s. These 3 teenage kids are trying to get high on mushrooms, and they're just hanging out with Lamb. Lamb's just hanging out with them like he's living through them almost. All right, we're back on the river later that day. I knew this would be tough to read because I'm explaining a lot as I'm reading. Lamb is now at the river near the shore. He's rising up in confusion with mushroom stems all around him. He grabs his bucket and continues gathering herbs and plants nearby as he mimics the guitar riff of Slow Ride by Foghat. So in his dream, he probably watched more of Dazed and Confused, and that's a big scene there when they play Slow Ride. I forget how it goes. Slow ride, take it easy. Maybe he even starts singing that to himself to make it more obvious what I'm going for here. Later that day, at the marshland area, Callum is standing about 10 yards away from a large tree, and he's aiming his long spear. This is like the symbol of the alpha male, this long spear that Callum always has with him. And he's about to launch it at a circle drawn on the trunk. So they're practicing their marksmanship here. While Bew and Blad stand by his side, watching him attentively, holding their smaller spears. So Callum launches his spear towards the tree, hits the target dead center. He's very proud of himself, grunting towards Bew. And then he points back towards the tree as Bew steps up now, launches her spear, and she's a natural, landing a direct hit right next to Callum's. He smiles, pats her on the back, then grunts towards Blad. Blad steps up, it's his turn now, and he clumsily launches the spear with all his might, but he misses the target by miles. It seems like that. He uses all of his force and just launches this fucking spear into outer space, like just a bit outside. As Bew pats him on the back for some encouragement. So Callum's kind of disappointed that Blad has no skill for that. And then Bew's kind of cheering him up. But he dejectedly walks away to fetch his spear yards away from the tree. Bu and Callum pick their spears out of the tree trunk, then return to their training positions, standing a few yards farther from the target this time. Callum is picking Bu up onto his shoulders and saying, Bu, stra, which means Bu, strong. He hands her his long spear and she aims with the eye of the tiger and zips it right into, he's running now to test her accuracy. He's running in a zigzag motion and she squints harder, lines up her shot, then launches the long spear with all her might. At the same moment, Blad is walking by the tree after collecting his spear from the marshlands, and the long spear is zipping right towards him. He ducks at the last second and falls down into the mud as the long spear hits dead center on the tree trunk. Bu cheers atop Callum's shoulders while he walks to retrieve the long spear from the tree, and they find Blad covered in mud, breathing in a panic. And they start laughing at him. Bu, Blad frata, which means Blad afraid. Blad rises in a rage, wipes mud off his face, then takes Callum's long spear out of the tree and launches it to the other direction with all his might. They watch it sail for what seems like miles in all of his power until Callum grunts at him and points to where it landed. Callum, Blad, Mekwa, Mekwa, which means Blad, bring back, bring back. Blad just stands there angrily with his arms crossed, challenging Callum's alpha status. Callum, Mekwa. He's telling, Callum is also repeating that phrase. Yeah, Mekwa, bring back. Blad finally concedes, sighs, and marches away covered in mud, as Callum and Bu share another hearty laugh at his expense when he walks away. All right, just setting up more character development there. Now that seems like a scene from a Pixar movie. The father is training his daughter how to throw spears because that's how they probably survive. Hunting and defending themselves, they have these long spears as their weapons, just like primitive man, our ancestors. They're devolving back to that. They're starting the process of evolution all over again, and they're at the point of spears right now. They didn't get to gunpowder for another 1,000 years or so. Hopefully they don't even get there again. It's not inevitable to create gunpowder again, and then that's going to lead to nuclear weapons, and that's going to lead to whatever the fuck comes after that. All right, we're at the river later that day. Pag and Lamb are picking herbs and flowers near the shore. But as I was saying, it is like a Disney movie in parts. It's a very wholesome tale animation of this family. So that's a part of the story it's written like a Disney animation. All right, Pag and Lamb are picking herbs and flowers near the shore. Pag bends down, smells some of the herbs, places them into his plastic bucket, while Sepp walks in the shallow water in front of them, tracking a fish with his spear. Lamb guides her towards him because, remember, she's blind, and they both playfully splash his face. Distracted by the splash attack, Sepp is now lowering the spear to strike, but he misses the fish badly. He's trying to catch this fucking fish, and Peg and Lamb decide to just mess with him and splash him with water and distract him, just to fuck with him. They're laughing and they're splashing him as he continues to chase after the fish, trying to spear it, but he gives up after a few more attempts. Turns towards them, completely soaked now, as his frail body is kind of shivering. Sepp, kiste twaga, kiste twaga, cold water, cold water. Now they're laughing even harder and splash him more as he's hopping away awkwardly. He tracks another fish in the water, lowers his spear, but misses badly again. then lifts his spear up to find the remnants of an old faded VHS tape. He stares at the cartridge curiously as he removes it from his spearhead, tosses it away, then trudges farther through the shallow water, passing remnants of plastic bottles, Tupperware, straws, and jars. So it's like what I'm saying. We've had, maybe there's a bit of my green philosophy here that he's still finding all these plastic remnants all these years later, and he finds a VHS tape. And what the fuck would people think of what a VHS tape was? Even kids today don't know what a VHS tape is. But if you find it as an artifact, as a fossil, in 1,000 years from now, what would people even think it is? It's like you show an animal like a picture or a mirror and see how they react to it. That's what the human brain is kind of reduced to at this point. All right, later on, Callum is sneaking through the high grass towards a pig grazing on the muddy terrain. All these scenes are really just to show how these characters interact with each other, their personalities, set up this universe, and how they spend their days. What do they do as this tribe of 7 on this marshland, which is really Atlantic City? I don't think I said that yet. This is the Atlantic City thousands of years from now, this marshland. They're probably kind of near the ocean, but they're more in a marshy area. But it is Atlantic City. So maybe there's even remnants in the far distance. You could see remnants of the skyscrapers and casinos, but they don't really live in that area. All right, in the marshland, Callum is sneaking through the high grass and he's hunting a pig as Blod and Bew watch him, crouched on all fours nearby. Callum rises quietly, launches his long spear, and strikes the pig in the side. The wounded pig now sprints away as Callum chases after it. Blod and Bew now follow close behind him, wielding their own spears. Blod sprints by Callum's side and clumsily trips up his feet, sending him slamming to the ground as his left shoulder dislocates. So, Blod's kind of clumsy like that. He's strong as all fuck, but he's kind of clumsy character. Alright, now Callum rises, but his shoulder's out of its socket, so he's screaming in agony. He falls onto his knees while Blod tries to help him up, but Callum is too proud. Sueskai! And that means get away. Bew sprints past them and chases after the pig with a determined scowl. So leave it to the young woman to save the day and kill this pig. Down by the river at the same time, Lamb is resting on the grass on the shore, his plastic bucket by his side, now full of herbs, plants, leaves, and mushrooms. He chews on another mushroom and stares at the white fluffy clouds. And he dreams again. Lamb is sipping on a beer at a bar alone, cleanly shaven, dressed in jeans, t-shirt, and an Atlantic City trucker's hat. So there's their Atlantic City connection. As a baseball game plays on the TV. So he's in a dive bar in this dream sequence. Lamb is watching the baseball game curiously while a shadowy figure stares towards him from across the room, seated alone at a booth. The figure takes down a shot of whiskey, violently slams the glass down, then walks towards Lamb with monstrous, thumping footsteps. Lamb turns his gaze towards the figure to reveal a giant cyclops, similar to the one from his other dream. This cyclops is sipping a beer, burping, then sitting down next to Lamb as they both gaze up towards the TV. Cyclops. Real shame things went sideways like that. He eats some peanuts from a bowl on the bar. Cyclops. Once the farmers went, sure did become a real free-for-all. every man, woman, and child for themselves, whether by instinctual fight or flight, or pent-up frustration of the gambit's comic relief. The Cyclops man reaches behind the bar for 2 shot glasses and a bottle of whiskey and pours out 2 shots. Cyclops: people, keep on learning. He passes one of the shots to Lamb. Cyclops: soldiers, keep on warring. They hold their shot glasses up, salute each other, and drink. Cyclops: world, keep on turning. So I would have him like world, and then he slams the shot glass down on the bar. Keep on turning. Now the Cyclops is lighting a cigarette. By the way, that's from Stevie Wonder. Those are lyrics from Stevie Wonder. Higher ground. Till people keep on learning, soldiers keep on warring, world keep on turning. 'Cause it won't be long. I just thought that would be cool to put that there. So now the Cyclops is lighting a cigarette and inhaling. Cyclops: you spend some days thinking you can bring just an iota of light into these scenes, while madmen and demagogues generationally mate in blinded contempt and manipulated self-identifying servitude. So we got a Cyclops who's kind of an existentialist here. Now the Cyclops is sipping his beer, burping right into Lamb's face as his one eye is staring directly towards Lamb. Cyclops: and then the story had to go and get rewritten once again. The end can only begin. The rise can only fall. He finishes his beer, then walks towards the exit. Cyclops: go and waste your gold, pining for the clouds to scatter wisdom upon these method actors, sins of the father reset, to fleece you in the billows where the data recovers. He stares back towards Lamb by the door, moving his hands together like he was washing them. Cyclops: rinse and repeat. He walks out of the bar, while Lamb sips his beer and turns his attention back to the baseball game on the TV. That's the end of Lamb's dream here. Similar to the dream I was saying, that I had this dream that I was in a bar drinking with a Cyclops. And it was one of the coolest and strangest dreams I ever had. So this Cyclops is kind of just speaking philosophy to himself, but he's talking to Lamb in this. He's sitting right next to him, just ranting philosophically. And it's about the end. Yeah, he was probably there when humanity perished, when this army of Cyclops fucked everything up. It's a symbolic element of the human story. Seems to be going that way, towards we'll destroy ourselves eventually. I don't want to be completely negative. I still have faith in the younger generation to find a different paradigm somehow. But I don't know what that really entails or what it would look like as robots take over, maybe. I don't know. But he's saying rinse and repeat, like history repeating itself. It's going to happen again and again. Lamb and his tribe, eventually, after thousands of years, they're going to grow into cities. Their ancestors will grow languages and religions and machine learning and cities and armies and nations, and the same paradigm that we live in today will repeat itself, because nobody really knows what a new matrix simulation will look like. Again, I don't want to go into the matrix again. I bring up the philosophy of the matrix like in so many different talks like this, discussions of my stories, and existential thought like that. All right, we're back on the river as Lamb is sleeping on the shore, but he's now opening his eyes and he's placing his arms out to block the sunlight as Bew is sprinting by him wielding her spear, and she's still chasing this fucking pig. So his dream wasn't that long. It was a short little daydream because it's moments later from when Blad accidentally tripped Callum, and now Bew is trying to kill this fucking pig. She kicks up mud onto Lamb's face as she runs by the wounded pig just a few yards ahead of her. She launches the spear and lands a direct hit through the pig's stomach. They calmly walk over as it moans in pain. Lamb gently rubs the pig on the cheek, guiding her hand over its heart. He grabs Bew's hand, puts it over its heart, the pig's heart, then puts the pig out of its misery as they both shut their eyes, hold hands, and share a moment of silence. So, even though I'm a vegan, I've said this before, people had to survive, man. In the marshlands, you see a pig, that's going to be food for maybe a week. There's no preservatives in this time, but yeah, I'm a vegan, and the last type of meat I would ever eat is pork. I haven't had pork since I was maybe in my early 30s or so, to the point where I don't remember eating pork. The last time I had pork, I have no idea. I can't remember at this point the last time I ate meat. Like, the last time I ate meat was probably some kind of chicken or something. But my personal food philosophy or my diet has nothing to do with this story. So it's not like I feel bad by putting a hunting scene. People have to survive. If I was living like this and it was either you starve to death or you're going to eat meat, I'm going to eat the fucking meat. But, you know, in the way I live, I haven't had meat or any animal product in probably 5 years. And my relationship with food is completely different than how I grew up, because we used to eat pork all the time. Or I would go work at a Phillies game, get a sausage sandwich with onions and peppers, almost like a couple times a week, because it's delicious. I'm not gonna lie, it tastes really good. But you could put tofu in that, or some other meat substitute, and with all that flavoring, it would taste almost the same thing. At least to me, it does. It doesn't matter. Put a bunch of fucking crickets, because there is a stadium that sells crickets like a delicacy. As long as you flavor it right, it's protein, right? I don't know. I'm not a dietitian either. Yesterday, I'm talking about psychology, about why I used to beat myself up. Now I'm talking about food like I really know what I'm talking about. But I'm proof that you don't need animal products. It's been a good 5 years with no meat, no bread, none of that shit. And I feel better now than I did when I used to eat that stuff. So, in an ideal world, if I was creating a new universe, yeah, it would be probably more vegan-centric, because I think that is a good path forward. But I know a lot of people think it's all mumbo-jumbo. It's difficult when you first get off of it. Once you make the decision to go that path, it is kind of difficult for a couple months. But your body adjusts to it pretty quickly, at least in my case. But everyone's different. Don't take my word as anything. All right. Now we're outside the cave again. Aura is tending to the fire in the pit as the sun starts to set. And then she's gazing out towards the tribe, returning from the marshland. So Aura stayed at home, just doing shit in the cave, while everyone else was out doing stuff. Bew, Lamb, and Blad are carrying the pig carcass towards her. Maybe they put it on a stick and they're carrying it. They set it down near the fire as the weaker Sepp carries Lamb's bucket and helps the injured Callum walk with Pag's assistance. So Callum's still kind of injured. His arm is out of its socket from chasing the pig. Aura grabs the bucket from Sepp, filled with leaves, herbs, and mushrooms, and then she stares at Callum, who's rubbing his dislocated shoulder by the fire. Aura. Callum Loprek, which means Callum darkness. So she's asking if he's like in death, if he's about to die or not. Because that's probably normal conversation back then. Maybe there was like this was like a 15-person tribe, but it's tough to survive, so people die all the time. Maybe it was like a larger tribe, and that's the remaining 7 people now. All right. Callum stabs his long spear into the dirt, stares towards Aura, trying to remain tough through the pain. Callum. Dinok Loprek, which means no darkness. Lamb grabs a large green leaf from his bucket, warms it over the fire for a few seconds, then wraps it over Callum's injured shoulder. So he's playing shaman here. He directs his attention to the clouds above, then jostles it back into place while he's distracted. So he's distracting almost like a doctor does. The needle's going in, but don't pay attention. How's the Phillies going? And then the doctor injects the needle if somebody's afraid of that shit. That's what Lamb is doing now. He's distracting his son while he puts his shoulder back into place. Callum screams out while Lamb laughs and rubs his back to comfort him. So Lamb is able to set his shoulder again. Now we are inside the cave that night as Callum rests near the fire next to Pag. And he's humming a soothing melody to himself as Pag massages his shoulder. Or Pag is singing, I'm sorry. Pag's the one singing this song. Fistro Bilstra Sada, however you want to approach this. And it means in the clouds seek. There's a lot of symbolism with clouds in this. Already, Callum is looking to the clouds. Not Callum, Lamb is looking at the clouds every time he takes a mushroom trip. I wanted to present that. Like, we put our data in the cloud. We put all of this information into our digital clouds. We share it with people. And that's what I'm trying to represent with real clouds. That Lamb eats these mushrooms as a form of knowledge, a form of connection to his ancestry from thousands of years ago. And he's learning about the past ways every time he eats these mushrooms. I'm not saying that's what... I'm not promoting psychedelic drug use. I'm not promoting anything here. Don't try to present it like that. But I'm also not against it either. Everyone could figure it out for themselves. All right. Callum stares at his wife, kisses her lips, then falls asleep in her arms, while Bew watches her parents' sweet embrace from the bed and smiles. And then she plays with her fish tank once again. The next day, early morning light shines onto Sepp as he leans over the pig carcass in front of the fire pit, struggling to slice the pig's ear off with his small spear, while Blad sits nearby, sharpening his. Callum exits the cave, rubbing his sore shoulder and watching Sepp struggle. He shoves him away frustratingly and slices the pig's ear off using his long spear. So, yeah, Sepp is very weak here. He can't even slice the pig's ear off. Callum comes over and has no problem using his long spear. He's the alpha. And then he forcefully pats him on the back. Callum, Sepp, dinok stra, which means Sepp, no strength. Sepp tries to save face, but struggles once again to cut the other ear off, while Callum sighs and walks away from the fire, dejected. Callum, dinok stra, no strength. He's saying that about Sepp. Now Blad is trying to stick up for his father, as he angrily darts his spear down, storms towards Callum, and shoves him hard on his injured shoulder. Blood. Callum dinok stra. Callum no strength. Callum winces in pain, rubs his shoulder, as the two men share some tense silence and stare each other down. The tension finally breaks as Callum smiles wide and pats Blood on the back. Callum. Blood stra. Sikat loprek, which means Blood strong, survives darkness. So Callum actually likes that at least one person in his tribe is showing some kind of balls here, some kind of a strength. Everyone else is either, well, Bu was kind of strong as well, but he was just noticing Sep being all frail like that. Blood is now happy with himself, and he pats Callum on his injured shoulder as a sign of camaraderie. Callum tries to remain stoic through the pain as he stumbles back towards the fire, slices off the pig's snout, and tosses it to Sep. Sep fumbles the snout, picks it out of the fire, places it over his nose, and oinks like a pig, hoping for a laugh. Blood snorts in hysterics, but Callum doesn't quite appreciate the humor as he stares at him stone-faced and walks away, shaking his head in disappointment. Blood tries to cheer his father up as he grabs the pig snout, places it over his own nose, and oinks in his face as they both share a laugh and oink around the fire. Again, these scenes back to back are just showing the Disney side of this animation. We're getting to know these characters, and before we get into the real meat of this story, it's just another character building that Callum is always showing his alpha male status and the dominant strong man because he has to be. He probably doesn't even want to play that role, but he's forced to keep the tribe protected, and he wishes he had other strong people with him. That's kind of his motivation in that scene. It's weird to say that when you're speaking of animated characters. Like, this is the animated character's motivation. But I guess you're really talking to the animator who's making this scene and explaining what you're going for. All right, now we're back at the river as Lamb is sitting cross-legged in the shallow water, chewing on a mushroom. His bucket next to him full of his herbs and mushrooms and flowers and plant stems and all that shamanic healer stuff. Now he spots something black sticking out from the mud, stumbles over, reaches down, and pulls out a vinyl record which has some very serious wear and discoloration, but it's still in its circular shape to some degree. Now this is thousands of years later, and he's finding a vinyl record from the 1970s. He stares curiously towards the few letters barely legible, and it is Lola Versus Powerman, but all you see are just a couple letters here and there by the Kinks. He places it over his bucket, sits in the mud, stares at the clouds, then he shuts his eyes again. So he's probably been eating mushrooms all morning. He's just munching on mushrooms constantly. Now it's Lamb's dream. Inside, he's within a psychedelic jungle, and he's sitting on a very high tree branch, gazing towards purple, pink, and orange trees. Almost like a Dr. Seuss universe, with various pieces of geometric fruit, as mushrooms the size of skyscrapers tower over him. A family of friendly apes hang from branches nearby, staring curiously towards him. The ape patriarch, Sonny, reaches out his hand and Lamb shakes it after some hesitation, as the two smile wide like they were reunited ancestors. Psychedelic jungle. A little bit later in the day, Lamb is sitting in a brightly colored field near a red, white, and blue waterfall, as the ape family are feasting on wildly colorful mushrooms. Sonny splits a glowing golden mushroom and hands half to him, and the two friends eat together. Psychedelic jungle. A little bit later that day, Lamb and Sonny sleep peacefully in the shade under a gigantic mushroom as the other apes dance around and fling mushroom tops like frisbees and swim towards the waterfall, while we drift closer towards Sonny's shut eyes. What am I showing here? Really, this is like the Terence McKenna stoned ape theory played out in this stupid little animation. Lamb is dreaming about this ape family, and he's like reuniting with his ancestors. And they're all eating mushrooms, and that's kind of related to Terence McKenna and the stoned ape theory that apes came down, or our ancestors came down, and their brains were able to expand and go into different levels of functioning because of magic mushrooms. There's a connection to the mycelium network like that. I'm not educated enough to speak more than that, but there is a cool curiosity to that whole mycelium network thing. And I use that plot device a couple different times throughout my writing, as I was really listening to a lot of that stuff. All right, later that day, Lamb and Sonny's the ape, remember? He's the alpha ape of this ape family in this psychedelic jungle, which actually appears in Garrity kind of as well. Garrity is not an animation, but there's some scenes that kind of are dreams or the hallucinations that go back towards that. So Lamb and Sonny are sleeping peacefully in the shade under this gigantic mushroom as the other apes are dancing around them. I already read that, I apologize. We're going into a dream montage as Sonny and Lamb are sleeping now. But this is Sonny's dream. So Lamb is dreaming about Sonny and his apes, and inside Lamb's dream, Sonny is now going to be dreaming. And Lamb is dreaming about Sonny's dream. That makes sense. Kind of. Almost like an Inception type of thing, a dream within a dream. All right, so you got to look at this dream like it's Sonny the ape's dream. And we're in this psychedelic jungle outside of Sonny's mushroom restaurant. Sonny and his ape family unveil a large restaurant banner with the title Sonny's Mushrooms. So the ape family are opening up a mushroom themed restaurant. They embrace each other in congratulations while one of the apes cracks open the champagne to celebrate. All right, now a little bit later that night, Sonny is dressed in a chef's uniform as he's cooking colorful mushrooms over a fire pit, while other apes sit at tables dressed in casual attire, eating various cooked mushroom dishes. Sonny pauses and smiles towards his successful new business venture, while the rest of his family wait tables, work the bar, and help him prepare more meals. A little bit later, well, actually this is weeks later, we're still inside Sonny's mushroom restaurant as Sonny is frantically cooking mushrooms on a grill, sweat dripping from his face as the ape waiters hang more orders onto the board. He tries to keep up, but the stress is too great on him, and he collapses onto the ground in an anxiety-riddled panic attack. Now we're at the ape doctor's office as the next day, an intimidating ape dressed in a doctor's uniform checks Sonny's blood pressure and heartbeat, then presses down onto his gut. He now fills out a prescription in his pad, rips off the page, and hands it to him. So, yeah, Sonny collapsed, and now he went to see the doctor. Now he's at the ape pharmacy, and he's handing the prescription to the ape pharmacist behind the counter, who is now walking to the back, and she's clumsily grinding some mushrooms into little pill capsules, and she stuffs them into a small bottle, all these little mushroom pills, then returns and hands it to him. Sonny walks to the front register now and pays the ape cashier with ape cash, featuring pictures of a regal ape king wearing a golden crown. Behind the counter, packs of cigarettes with the logo of an ape cowboy sit on display shelves. Ape pharmacy. We are outside as Sonny exits the pharmacy, and two apes dressed as police officers chase him down. These two apes that are dressed as police officers chase another ape down, this teenage ape, and arrest him. And they find a bag of mushrooms within one of his pockets. Ape bar. That night, Sonny is sitting alone at the ape bar drinking his ape beer while an ape prostitute approaches him. He's distracted by her seductive movements. And as he's distracted, this creepy ape in a suit spikes his drink with a clear liquid from a test tube, then sneaks away. Later that night, in an ape motel room, the ape prostitute is riding on top of Sonny, whose eyes are completely hazy in a drugged-out daze, while a small team of apes dressed in suits study him intently, snap pictures, and write notes into pads. What am I talking about here? I'll get to it when I finish this thing. It's kind of a little bit too wordy, but I'll explain it more when I finish this dream sequence. Sonny sits in the back seat of a fancy limo now, and the same team of apes from the motel room are around him, and they're showing him the photos from the night before, then rolling down the window and forcing him to watch his restaurant be set on fire. He tries to break free and exit the limo, but the men clutch him, or the apes. I don't know why I wrote the men. This group of apes clutch him and inject him with a syringe, causing him to black out. Now we're at the Ape City Hall as the ape president, wearing a golden crown, stands in front of a podium while his adoring supporters hold signs and small banners. Just say no. Don't be the next stoned ape. And a mind is a terrible thing to waste. So they're holding like an anti-drug rally with the ape president here. Now we're many, many years later in the ape corporate boardroom as Sonny is much older now with almost all the life drained from his eyes. And he's sitting at a long table with other corporate apes. One ape rises and clicks play on his tablet, while a video also begins to play on the large screen on the wall. This video is a commercial for a pharmaceutical pill, showing an ape couple prancing through a park, then gently floating down a red, white, and blue river in a bathtub, and then eating a meal together with their happy ape family at a restaurant. Sonny sobs as he watches, as a purple teddy bear mascot now appears on screen with the logo Gloritin and the tagline, "Just how was your day today?" We drift closer to Sonny's crying eyes as he watches. Alright, that's the end of Sonny's dream. Now we're back in that psychedelic jungle as Sonny is waking up in a panic under the shade of the giant mushroom. And then he watches his family play, dance, and laugh nearby, as now we drift closer to Lamb's shut eyes. And that's the end of Lamb's dream. There's a lot to take in here. What the fuck am I trying to represent with his dream within a dream? Lamb is dreaming that he's a part of this ape family, and then we meet Sonny, and we're going into Sonny's dream, and his family opens up a mushroom-themed restaurant to feed people these psychedelic mushrooms as a type of healing. The stoned ape, these apes found something that God left to help them develop, to help them create a different society. I realize it's not an accepted scientific dogma, the Terence McKenna stoned ape theory, but I'm playing on that in a very Rick and Morty-like montage here. So Sonny is working at his restaurant and it's stressing him out, so he has to go to the doctor. the doctor's giving him a prescription for the same mushrooms. In the ape pharmacy, they're handing him this bottle of pills that are made from the same mushrooms that Sonny was cooking at his restaurant. So you can see how it's a critique of our healthcare system, of big pharma using the same techniques in similar ways as this story shows. If there's a healing effect of something, you bet your ass other people will want to make money off of it. All right. Well, how's the rest of this dream play out? Now, we notice that now the war on drugs is starting. They're arresting this teenage ape for having mushrooms in his pockets. And now Sonny's at the bar drinking his ape beer. It's almost like MK Ultra. They drug his drink. He wakes up. Unbeknownst to himself, he's 8 prostitutes on top of him. And this team of apes, almost like the CIA apes, are snapping pictures of him to blackmail him later. And then they're in the limo and they show him all these pictures of the night before when they drugged him. And he's like, what the fuck, man? And they're burning down his restaurant because now it's the war on drugs. They control the healing drug now, not this ape guy with no power. They work for the government. They work for these lobbyists. All right, now the ape president is holding a big political rally about just saying no to drugs. And then where does Sonny end up? His restaurant's no more. Maybe his wife leaves him. I didn't show that much because this is already just a crazy montage. But it's based on the Rick and Morty type of animation where they have these long montages that kind of go on from maybe 2-3 minutes very quickly to show a person's entire life. I really like how Rick and Morty does that. So Sonny ends up working in a corporate boardroom for these same big pharma representatives that took away his business. And he's watching this commercial for Gloritin pills, which are probably made from similar chemicals reminiscent of what happens when you take these mushrooms. Again, I have no knowledge of any of this shit. It's just my imagination. I'm not promoting anything, pharmaceutical drugs or recreational mushrooms, whatever, man. Microdosing. Figure that out yourself. Don't listen to people. Figure it out for your own mental and physical health. Everyone's going to handle shit differently. And that's how we end this. So he's crying as his entire life, his dream to open up this healing mushroom restaurant got burnt down because of the war on drugs. And now he's working for the same people that destroyed his dream. And I just thought it was an interesting way to put it in there. And Lamb is waking up as well. So he just had a crazy mushroom dream here, because this one went on for a couple pages. I'm going to read a couple more pages here. I'm on page 21 now. All right. You know, I'm actually going to stop after this one, because we're going to meet another tribe of people, and I want to be fresh when I get to that point. But I'll stop here. We're at the electrical tower. The first time we see this electrical tower near the marshland. And this is what this tribe has been praying to, almost like a symbol of God. Because it's a massively tall electrical tower. And it looks so imposing. It must have been left there by God. That's how these ancestors would interpret stuff like that. So a few hours later, after this dream sequence, Lamb is waking up to the bright sunshine at the electrical tower as he shields his eyes and gazes up at the old rusty tower. He chews on a mushroom, then lifts the vinyl record that he found before in front of his face. like it was a sacred treasure. Almost like he's holding it up like it was the Eucharist, like they do in Catholic Mass. In his perception, the record is spinning in the air while the sounds of a stylus hitting the vinyl echoes, and the Kink's 8-man plays loudly. So we have a dance scene here, a music break, after watching that crazy dream sequence. A bit of a comic relief as Lamb is dancing around the tower, swinging from the lower rails like an ape as 8-man plays. Another lamb appears and joins his dance, then another lamb, and another lamb, and another one, until we drift high above and view 7 identical lambs dancing in unison around the tower. So he's just hallucinating, almost like the ape family. They all, they're all very similar looking. Now Lamb is imagining other doppelgangers of himself. Maybe some are a little bit younger, maybe some are women, but they're all dancing together to 8-man by the Kinks around this fucking electrical tower. Even a few hours later, now Bew is walking by. She just caught a fish on her spear, and she's hearing humming coming from the other side of the tower. She approaches, and she's squinting curiously towards Lamb, who's now laying on the ground with his eyes shut, spinning the record above his head and humming the melody to 8-man. She backs away, shaking her head in disbelief, wondering if her grandfather has lost his mind completely. As Lamb drops the record onto his chest, places his hands over his ears like he was listening to the music through headphones. So, yeah, Lamb's experiencing some weird shit right now, because he's going through, I was going to say the future, I had to catch myself. He's going through how human beings survived through art thousands of years ago. And that's kind of what he's experiencing in his consciousness as he continues to eat the mushrooms and have these weird visuals of media like Dazed and Confused, and he's listening to the Kinks, and he's having these weird dreams about apes opening up restaurants. I wanted to add, all of this stuff was not in the screenplay at first. I'm going to stop here on page 21, because this is a very difficult one to get through for me. There's so much to explain, so many different characters. It becomes scattered within my own brain, so I realize it's hard for people to read this. Hopefully I can speak it aloud and clear up some things of what I'm trying to go for. Do all of these scenes play a part in this storytelling? Yes. They're not just there to be cute scenes. Like, there are reasons for all of these moments. Even the some might seem like they're kind of just filler, and I get that, but you have to build these characters somehow. And originally, this entire screenplay was much more bland, and almost impossible to read through for myself even. And this was, out of the 12 episodes, this was definitely the one that I had to keep going back to and editing. And I had to go again and add some more stuff. And I'm like, this isn't working. Should I just delete this one and find a different story? Eventually, I put the Terrence McKenna angle about stoned ape theory, because I just like the imaginative quality of it. I'm not saying it has any relevance on human evolution or how the brain was able to expand over that time period, which is still kind of a mystery, I think. There's other theories out there. Yeah, it all comes from my fascination with the Graham Hancock, Joe Rogan, Duncan Trussell. They can speak about these things way more intelligently, way more in an entertaining fashion than myself. But I take bits and pieces of those concepts, and it was helpful to put into a story like this. Because how could you not be attracted to that type of a theory? Our monkey ancestors came down from the trees and started eating mushrooms, and that expanded their knowledge. It expanded their ability to process information or learn things or create stuff. There's a different side of the brain for rational thinking and creativity. It's a different type of mental processing. What I'm doing right now is more rational. As I read through this and try to explain my creative notions, I'm trying to use more of my rational brain to make this experience easier for people, so you don't have to read this yourself and be like, what the fuck is this shit? You could actually experience it as I read it and explain exactly what I'm going for. Hopefully I'm somewhat successful at that. This one is very difficult. I said it last night when I finished Once in a Lifetime. I was like, man, tomorrow is going to be tough when I get through part 1 of Rinse and Repeat, because there's so many fucking characters and all these weird dream sequences. And I don't know, just the way it kind of reads, very short scenes, and it's almost like combating against each other. There's the normalcy of life in the marshlands as Caleb is trying to control this tribe and protect them and keep them fed and safe and teach the youth how to continue the traditions. And then there's the opposing side of that is kind of Lamb, even though he's the shaman of the family and he's a needed person, but he's also lost in this fairy tale land, eating these mushrooms. He doesn't know what it's doing to his brain. He doesn't know where he's going in these dreams, but he's trying to gain some kind of a clarity about the past and implement that into the future. That's kind of where his head is at. So yeah, it's weird. It's a very strange type of screenplay with not much of a organizational outline. I kind of just kept going back and changing things, dozens of times. I just never really was satisfied with how it read, and it wasn't supposed to be an animation at first. It was going to be live actors, like that movie Quest for Fire, right? Quest for Fire, which I did watch, from the 80s. And I don't think there's any 1981. There's no dialogue. There's like tons of sex scenes in it too. It's like they show like the creation of the missionary position as this cave woman is like fucking this dude. It's a weird movie, man. It actually got decent reviews. Roger Ebert gave it 3.5 out of 4, 88% Rotten Tomatoes. It has the one famous actor, Ron Perlman, from 1981. I don't know any of the other names here, but Ron Perlman, yeah. It's hard. Yeah, he's been in a lot of stuff. Quest for Fire, 1981. It's a French-Canadian prehistoric adventure film directed by Jean-Jacques Annaud, Annaud, based on a 1911 novel about a tribe of early humans searching for fire after their own source is lost. So that's pretty interesting. Yeah, I do remember it now. These cave people had to carry this flame around because at that point they don't know how to make fire, so they have to never extinguish it. They have to keep the fire going forever. And inevitably it goes out at some point. And now they have to venture outside the cave and find fire from somewhere else. It's pretty decent. I would recommend watching it. It's got some disturbing scenes, violence and sexual stuff, but overall it's pretty well done for that time period. It was pretty realistic looking. Quest for Fire, yeah. That was kind of a motivating force for writing a script like this, to try to create my own language of grunts and moans, because this type of human civilization has lost, as I said it before, the Graham Hancock famous quote that we're a species with amnesia, and it makes sense with a story like this. Our ancestors, thousands of years from now, if we do end up killing each other and humanity is lost and this version of civilization is forgotten, and Bu and Lam and Callum and Sep and Ora and Pog are the ancestors thousands of years from now that happen to survive, because in Jurassic Park we learned from Jeff Goldblum that life will always find a way. And yeah, humanity will continue. Some people will survive through all that shit, but they're going to lose language over the years as education is gone. Are they going to educate themselves? No, their only concern is to survive the winter and to find a place with enough food that can sustain a tribe and protect themselves from other tribes. Like, that's what it's going to become. It's not going to be how we go about our daily lives and struggle for funding for education, funding for the inner city, funding for a more equitable society. All that shit's out the window if you're living in a cave and you have to hunt and hunt and gather and reproduce to keep the tribe going and survive through all Mother Nature can throw at you. That's where I'm going with this story. And it's not supposed to scare people. I'm just painting this like a Disney movie, really. A lot of these scenes are like out of a Pixar movie, where Bu and Lam, their story, and they're going to continue in the second part. I wanted to stop here because my own brain is kind of congested at the moment with all these characters. So I know what it must feel like for people trying to understand what I'm going for. I stopped on page 21 because we're about to meet the other tribe in this story and meet 5 more characters: Grood and Riki and Boki and Sag and Wist. And I didn't want to get into it yet. It's too many fucking people to keep in my brain like this. But we're going to meet this other tribe, and that's going to play a part in how this story continues. And also, the other main storyline is going to be Lam and Bu as they venture out for a reason I'll explain later. And yeah, it's still a lot to get through. I could have almost done this in 3 parts because my brain is already kind of fried right now talking about part 1 of this story, because I had to remember these characters and remember the scenes in my head, what I was trying to, especially the ape dream sequence. But if you're a Rick and Morty fan, there's plenty of examples from Rick and Morty where we see a character's life in like a 3-4 minute montage. The one, is it the one with the death crystals, I think? There's a long montage where Morty ends up in a plane crash. He's about to die in the plane crash. I forget what it's called. There's a lot of Rick and Morty elements in my writing, especially this one, more than anything else. Man and Deer might have had some elements of that, because that's an animation too, but this one really was influenced by the Rick and Morty style. So maybe that's what I'm looking at in terms of the animation quality of this. And hopefully it makes people laugh too, because it is supposed to be a silly story. I'm not trying to get all deep here, like, don't you know the stoned ape theory is the way we evolved, man? What do you believe in? Nah, I'm just exploring these things with as an open mind to just let it become a part of my fiction writing, because how can you really come up with a better Twilight Zone concept than that? Terrence McKenna should have sent that in. Well, maybe the Twilight Zone wasn't around. I don't know when that show stopped. But if somebody sent the Twilight Zone a script about stoned ape theory, that our ape ancestors were able to improve their brain functioning because they ate psychedelic mushrooms and blah, 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 go from there. That's a great concept in a science fiction element, or a story like this that's just completely ridiculous. So that's all I'm going for. I'm going to take a break, come back maybe in a couple hours and try to finish this. And yeah, that's the main. I usually read halfway through, so I should read another 4 pages or so. But because of the style of this, I don't want to bring more characters into this story yet. Whoever's going to listen to this and want to make this into an animation, yeah, I'd rather split it up like this so it could stay fresh in your head in 2 separate parts for my own self. And as these 2 tribes are going to meet now, we have 12 characters. That's the most characters I've ever written. And I had to give each of these characters a unique type of personality, which isn't easy. These are all like primitive people, and they're all pretty similar. But I had to make Shep like the weaker dude. Callum is the alpha. Lamb is the shaman. Pog is the strong woman who's blind. Aura is just the other wife that, sorry, I didn't really know how to make her character unique. But these are just cave people, man. I don't know. You can show them on screen. The actors can have at it and make the characters their own. I say actors, but this is an animation, so the animators can give all these characters a personality through how they animate it. There are Pixar movies, I believe. Wasn't it called was it called the Groods or something? I remember doing ads for it. The job I used to work at, we did bus ads for a lot of movies. That the Croods, is that what it was called? Maybe. Croods? The Croods. The Croods is a 2013 animated adventure produced by DreamWorks, not Pixar, DreamWorks, featuring a prehistoric family navigating a changing world, directed by Chris Sanders and Kirk D'Amico, starring Nicolas Cage and Emma Stone, and it became a very successful franchise. So you could look at that. I never saw it, but I remember the ads for it. It was like a primitive family, and I don't know where the story went from there, but yeah, check that out. That's DreamWorks. And there was a sequel, The Croods and New Age, released in 2020. Maybe I could go back in time and revisit that to get some additional inspiration for this. But I don't think they deal with psychedelic drugs in DreamWorks movies, but who knows? Sometimes animations, even SpongeBob, could have adult-themed jokes that are kind of subtle enough where kids don't understand what's going on. One of the funniest things I've seen, this is not really similar to what I'm just talking about, but there was I guess a parody of Let the Bodies Hit the Floor. Somebody made a parody of that with like puppets counting, like 1, I can count to 1, 2, I can count to 2, 3, then I count to 3, 4. That's as far as I go. I can only count to 4. I can only count to 4. Look it up. It's one of the funniest things I've seen in a while. I can only count to 4, like using puppets, but it sounds so good. I can only count to 4. It actually made me appreciate that song more. It's a really good song. Let the bodies hit the floor. I can only count to 4. I wrote cunt. I can only cunt to 4. I can only count to 4. I can only count to 4. Yeah, look it up on YouTube. I can only count to 4. Psycho Stick Numbers. I don't know. Psycho Stick is the YouTube channel, I think. Drowning Pool. It's a cover of Drowning Pool. I can only count to 4. Really well done. It made me really appreciate that song. I never really liked that song before. Let the bodies hit the floor. Let the body. That was a pretty popular song. It was all over the radio when it came out. But I think I used to change the channel because it never really connected to me until I saw this parody of it. I'm like, man, that song's amazing. Yeah, I'm going to end it here because I'm already over 2 hours, and I'll try to come back in a couple hours, finish this story, or I will come back in a couple hours and finish this fucking stupid, insane, stoned ape story, and maybe it will clear things up as I get towards the conclusion of this, because hopefully people understand at least what I'm shooting for with this. There's no way to do this, in my opinion, without animation. So, this is an animated script. Originally, it wasn't, because I was watching Apocalypto, I was watching Quest for Fire, and that's what I wanted to mimic. But my weird, the weird path this took because of my weird writing style, I wanted to make every episode unique. And I didn't know how else to do it besides adding these elements. There's more stand-up comedy stuff too coming up. There's some more flashbacks and weird dream stuff. Maybe a bit of environmental, political consciousness in there. Reduce your carbon footprint, motherfucker. But yeah, I'm trying to remember. I put some scenes in there to show that, because I do agree with a lot of that philosophy about the Green Revolution. That's why I wanted to do that. Partially, my Kickstarter project was a experiment with that. Can I survive, which is solar panels, without a fridge, without heat, without running water, with any of that shit? I would just have inside my shipping container just enough power to record music, to run my music equipment, my laptop, and that's all. So I was going to compost my own shit and kind of, I would just compost my own waste and human manure and see what that could do. It's kind of gross, but there is a book about that, human manure. So it's not completely out of the question. We learned from The Martian with Matt Damon, if you're stuck on a Mars colony, use your own shit to grow potatoes, motherfucker. It seems pretty simple. Use your own poop and grow a bunch of fucking potatoes. You want to survive on Mars? Well, you're going to have to use your poop as fertilizer. It's not that crazy. Like, I'm sure the guy who wrote this story probably had some weird experience like that. Maybe the author was homeless and he had to think of a creative way to feed himself. I don't know. But it's a good bit of science fiction that's really interesting. I enjoyed that movie, The Martian. It's pretty well done. I heard the book was actually better, but sometimes people say that just to say that they read the book. Oh, you saw the movie? Well, I read the book. How about that? You saw Game of Thrones? You watched everything? Oh, well, I read every fucking book. So there you go. I'm smarter than you, motherfucker. Keep watching your stupid, binging your series, and I'll be reading and using more of my brain power because I read, and all you do is watch and binge watch stupid shows. Yeah, some people are like that. Yeah, the movie was good, but the book is way better. but sometimes it's true. I can't think of anything. Somebody said Forrest Gump's actually a better book, different plot lines, whatever it was called. But I never even knew it was a book until maybe a couple of years ago. I think it is. Is Forrest Gump based on a book, or am I making that up? I'm really not sure now. Help me, Google. Is Forrest Gump based on a book? I want to say yes, but I'm not going to say that until I get Google to back me up based on a book, motherfucker. Yes, Forrest Gump is based on the 1986 novel of the same name by Winston Groom. While the film won 6 Academy Awards, blah, 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 it significantly altered the book's tone, making the character of Forrest more innocent and likable compared to his rougher savant personality. So yeah, I guess they took some liberties there. I wonder if the author actually liked it. In the book, Forrest Gump is 6'6" and 240, and he's a savant. He's much more cynical and foul-mouthed. Alrighty, yeah, I want to read the book now. The book includes more absurd scenarios. Forrest becoming a professional wrestler, going to space with NASA, living with cannibals. What the fuck? Alright, I'm buying this book like right now. Forrest Gump living with cannibals? That sounds like a Saturday Night Live skit or something. I don't know why didn't they go with that? That sounds like way better. It would have had a different tone to that movie, but I'm gonna buy that on Kindle right now, I think. As a professional wrestler, like fucking hell. Forrest Gump by Winston Groom. Alright, I'm not gonna buy it, I'll just save it for later. That's a habit I had. I would buy books and then they would just sit there and I never read them. But I will save this for later. Alright, I'm gonna stop this here. I think the second half might be a little bit easier, but again, the scenes with all these different people, it's very hard to read. It's very hard to paint these pictures in my head because a story like Once in a Lifetime was simple. You had Todd's character, which was very clearly defined in my head. You had Edward III, who was very clearly in my head. Martha, same thing. Marshmallow Jones, same thing. Who was the other one? Gary at the end, the old fisherman. All these characters were so clear. I could see their faces as they were talking and see these scenes so vividly. Like it was almost like I was experiencing this dream as I'm reading Todd's dream here. With a story like this, it's way more complicated because there's 12 different characters all in the scene like at the same time. And when you have to direct a scene like that, I'm sure it's more difficult. But I'm going to do the best I can. Hopefully it wasn't that bad in this part. And hopefully I can improve when I come back in a couple hours. But that's all for now. Thank you for listening to this. I can't promise you that this has a happy ending or a sad ending. It's one of those endings that I think is good enough for even a DreamWorks type of a movie, because you don't want to have weird symbolic endings like Easy Rider in a kids movie. Not that this is a kids movie. There's already some obscenity and, you know, I don't think kids would want to watch this in the first place. Even if the animation looks cool, like it's not really meant for a kid's study. You know, as a kid, you watch old Disney movies. In my generation, it was Disney movies. It was like Pippi Longstocking and shit like that. And that's all you really want to be exposed to. Cartoons and stupid stories that have no type of existential philosophy within it. Maybe it does, but you're just too young to care about it. All you want to do is see dinosaurs and robots and exciting adventures, Homeward Bound and Robin Hood. Those old Disney movies were classic. Bambi's kind of a horror movie, but it's still a classic. Teaching kids about death. Pinocchio's a fucked up movie. If you really think about it, yeah. Dude's got a boner growing out of his face every time he lies. Pinocchio is kind of a fucked up movie. What else? As a kid, like, what Disney movies will get canceled today? I don't know. I can't really point to anything. Is Aladdin kind of racist? I don't know. Is Aladdin's based on like Middle East folklore from a long time ago. I don't know. Is Aladdin considered racist? It's like a stereotypical look at genies and that type of a culture. Is Aladdin considered racist today? That's the first thing that came to mind. I know there's old Disney cartoons that were overtly racist against like African American people. The way they did the voices and stuff, I think, is a real point of contention. Is Aladdin considered racist today? What will Google display here? According to Google, yes, Aladdin is widely considered to have racist and Orientalist undertones. I don't know what that fucking means. Particularly regarding the portrayal of Arab culture. While it remains a beloved classic, the film is criticized for perpetuating negative stereotypes, and it now has a Disney Plus advisory warning. Holy shit. I didn't know what this would bring up. What other movies? What about Beauty and the Beast? Is that considered stereotypical of that time period? What Disney movies? Sorry to pick on Disney here, but that's what I grew up with. The Little Mermaid, The Lion King was amazing. Is that stereotypical? What Disney movies are considered to be racist? Are considered or portraying, maybe not racist, but although there probably are some of the really old cartoons that are like that. What Disney movies are considered, I don't know what other word to use, prejudicial? I don't know, man. Even Peter Pan, Native American caricatures. In Dumbo, there's minstrel-style crows. That's the racist shit, yeah. The Dumbo crows. Now I remember that. Lady and the Tramp. How is that racist? I don't know. The Aristocats. It's supposed to portray Asian caricatures. So, I don't think I saw that one. The Aristocats from 1970 features a Siamese cat named Shun-gon with exaggerated... Alright, I could see that. It's like the scene from Breakfast at Tiffany's. There's a racist portrayal of this one Asian character. So, I don't know, man. Fantasia, even? Wow. I never saw Fantasia. A small, dark-skinned centaur who served as a servant to the white centaurettes. I don't know that word. The Jungle Book. Fuck. Well, yeah, isn't the author of the Jungle Book kind of like a pro-colonial person? The white man's burden. He kind of believed in all that shit. I want to say that, but I could be wrong. Peter Pan has a musical number, What Made the Red Man Red, and consistently uses the Redskins to describe Native Americans. I don't even remember that, man. Peter Pan from 1953. So they probably remade it. I don't know if I ever saw that one. And the original Dumbo in 1941. I think that's the more famous example of these glaringly, is that the right, obviously racist crows that are just, exaggerating stereotypical black voices with the leader named Jim Crow. Holy shit. So there's some darkness to that, man. I just mean cartoons can portray the dark, I don't know, the way that society represented cultures even through animation back then. And that's only, 60 years ago? Longer than that, 80 years ago. But there's probably people alive still that saw Dumbo when it first came out in 1941. Yeah, it's a different time, but that's pretty crazy to have stuff. They named the character Jim Crow. Like, that's pretty crazy. I didn't know it was that deep like that. But I didn't know Aladdin would be. I just feel like Aladdin is based on actual Middle Eastern folklore, but I guess they didn't like how they portrayed some of the characters. So yeah, the world, like Aladdin's not that long ago. That's from the 90s. So you just have to kind of tread that line somehow of what I'm doing right now in my story. Is there anything that could be stereotypical of people? Because I never really think about that to that deep of a extent. I don't think so. I'm kind of making fun of drug addicts or hippies that go on psychedelic vision quest, but I'm not really making fun of it. I kind of want to do it myself. Go to New Mexico or take a peyote trip. I'm not totally against that, even though I'm straight edge. Straight edge, man. You can't be taking a psychedelic peyote quest like Tony Soprano did in The Sopranos. I think there is an episode like that. Tony Soprano, this will be my ending thought because that's kind of interesting to close on. Well, people thought The Sopranos was stereotypical of Italians. How come The Sopranos survived that long on HBO? Because it portrayed Italians as these animalistic, violent people. Tony Soprano, peyote episode. And I'm a fan of it. I think Sopranos was a good show, but I could see why people got angry at it. The Sopranos peyote episode is titled Kennedy and Heidi, Season 6, one of the later seasons, Episode 18. Aired back in 2000, holy shit, what's today's date? May 13th, 2007. That's a cool coincidence. So the Sopranos episode with the peyote trip aired on May 13th, 2007. Following Christopher Moltisanti's death, Tony goes to Vegas, hooks up with some lady, and takes peyote, leading to a major epiphany where he shouts, "I get it." Yeah, I don't remember that in detail, but I do remember the episode a little bit. But that's true. I remember people saying that about Sopranos, that it's a bad portrayal of Italian Americans. And then they had that episode about Columbus Day, and should you call it Columbus Day or Native American Day or Indigenous People Day? And people have political battles over that shit. Like, God damn it. I hate identity politics. I understand why conversations like that occur, but when I watch The Sopranos as an ancestor of people from that region, from Italy, Sicily, I don't give a shit. I'm not offended by it. I don't know. Maybe I just don't care. But maybe people in positions of power, because everyone has like an anti-defamation league, a team of lawyers, religions, and ethnic groups. So I get it why people say The Simpsons portrayed the Scottish stereotypes with groundskeeper Willie and the Indian stereotype with Apu working at the Quickie Mart, and then the Italian mafia guys. But was that offensive? Any of those things really? Did Scottish people watch Groundskeeper Willie and they're like, fuck you, Simpsons? How you gonna make Scottish people look like this? Grease me up, woman. Or I think Indian people got more, not outraged, but they get upset that Indian people are often portrayed in the same light. And I could see that. Nobody wants to be a part of a stereotype. That's why Dave Chappelle kind of lost faith in his comedy show. Yeah, I get it, man. In comedy, it's almost like when you portray these stereotypes, yeah, you're playing a part of it, but you're also showing how stupid it is. When I see Dave Chappelle, like The Whites, and he had like this suburban fake show called The Whites, or other shit he did, where he was a black guy who was blind and he was a part of the KKK. Like, was that offensive to people? I guess some people might get offended by it. I can only speak to my own interpretation as I watch a comedy, and later on somebody might say, well, you shouldn't laugh at that. Don't you know that it could offend somebody? Well, yeah, no shit, man. I get that. Was that the intent of Dave Chappelle when he wrote these episodes, to make people laugh? Was he trying to make people laugh, or was he trying to offend people? I would say almost 100% certainty that Dave Chappelle would be, hey man, I just want to make people laugh. I don't think he's trying to offend transgenders or any race of people. He's playing on stereotypes, which I guess gave him concern to not keep going on with his show. From what I understood, why he left Dave Chappelle, the Chappelle Show, why he took his, well, permanent hiatus from that until he came back and started doing comedy specials again. But that was always a part of comedy, whether it was Richard Pryor or other people. Stereotyping people it's a part of comedy. It just has always been there. Maybe it's more of a problem when a Disney cartoon from the 40s portrays these stereotypes in a more sinister type of way. But again, it's a conversation to have with African American people and Indian people. I can't have this conversation alone to talk about where people draw that line where a stereotype can be funny and then it becomes offensive at some other point. When is cultural appropriation legitimately a concern, and when is it just nonsense? I can't have those conversations by myself. They're more complicated. I need people to actually explain individual examples of all these things. I can only look stuff up on Google and be like, yeah, I kind of see that. That could be fucked up to watch as a kid. I talked about the ad that the company I used to work for put up this anti-Muslim ad on SEPTA buses that said, like, I forget what it said. Something about, please stop sending foreign aid to Muslim countries. And it had a picture of some Muslim dude with like Hitler or some shit. And I'm like, yeah, this is kind of weird. But what the fuck? I didn't sell the ad. I was a part of the warehouse team that, we were responsible for putting the ads on the buses or preparing it. I never really put the ads on. I wasn't an installer, but I was a part of that team that did that. So it's weird to go through moments like that and look back at it now. Like, what if some Muslim kid lived in America, born in America, a Muslim American kid goes on that bus every day to go to school or whatever with his parents, and he sees that ad that's like anti-Muslim ad, like, It's almost like in the 20s and 30s, like no Italians allowed, no Irish allowed. It's the same feeling that those people probably had, that type of discrimination that's just on a public bus or anywhere. There's billboards that probably show stuff like that. Everyone has different advertising rules with when it comes to political issues like that. So, yeah, nobody wants that in their face because then you might agree with that, and then I don't know, whatever you are, somebody will make an ad against you, and then somebody will make an ad against that person, and pretty soon the city bus, which is supposed to be a symbol of community and bringing people together, that's what a bus should represent. But it becomes like a social media, all these hateful ads about different cultures and groups. Like, yeah, it's fucked up. At the time, you don't really think about it because you're just a part of this machine. And sadly, you just turn the other way and say, hey, whatever, man, it's a free country. You want to put this ad on this bus? I'm not the one approving it. I'm not the one saying it's good or bad, but I'm a part of the team that is responsible for it. So there is a bit of complicity. I didn't speak out against it or anything. So it's weird, man. I included that in one of my books, in one of the chapters in my books, because that story kind of stays with me. Like, the person I am now is not the person I was when that happened like 15 years ago. You can actually Google it and look it up. It happened in Philadelphia with SEPTA. And eventually they took the ads down because enough people complained. Thankfully, people just complained and put enough pressure to take all the ads down. Because it was a fucked up ad. Like, totally admitted at this point in my life. But am I a strong enough person today if I get a job somewhere else and the company wants to put an ad like that on the window, or if my boss has an ad like that on his car or her car, or somebody says that in passing, would I stand up and say, that's fucked up, man, you shouldn't think like that, or you shouldn't put that as an advertisement or portray our company in that fashion? Would I have the guts to stand up and say something like that, which would probably lead to me either losing my job or being labeled as a hostile employee or some shit like that? Would I have the guts to speak out? I don't know, because I'm not really confrontational. I just want to put my head down in the sand and survive in this fucking rat race the best I can. Because in my opinion, yeah, you can get fired for any reason anyway. So it's almost like you want to survive in this, whatever you call it. Again, I wanted to say like a corporate environment, but that was not my job at all. But even myself, that corporate kind of grimy, sleazy social interaction became a part of my day-to-day experience. And then I got let go for no reason in 2021. So that's kind of your mindset. I was with the company for 11 years. Like, your best bet is just to keep your mouth shut, keep your head in the sand, and hopefully things will just get better. But the real brave people are the ones who take that risk and stand up and say, nah, this is wrong to do this. But sadly, I didn't do that back then. Looking back, I don't know if it really would have changed anything. Like, my voice didn't matter anyway. But if I would have said something, maybe other people would have said, yeah, we don't want to put this ad up. This is fucked up. Maybe other people would have put pressure on the company instead of whoever it was had to go to court and fight to get it taken down or whatever it was. I forget the whole story at this point, but I think that's a common plot device in a lot of movies like that, where you have this uncomfortable situation. What do? Do you step up and say something, or do you just stay silent and just forget about it and hopefully things get better organically? Because that's been my philosophy throughout my life, because I've never had a position of power where that was me making those decisions or determining if that was okay to put on a bus. That was never up to me. What would I do if I was in a position of power? If everyone else seemed okay with it, but I was like that movie 12 Angry Men, the one guy who thinks the person's not guilty, the rest of the jury's like, dude, we just want to leave, go home. The dude's guilty, just change your fucking verdict to guilty so we can get the hell out of here. Put this scumbag in jail. But the one guy sticks to his guns and says, no, he's not guilty. There's reasonable doubt for whatever reason in that movie, 12 Angry Men. That's what that movie's about. Are you going to stand up, be that one person out of the group that's not intimidated by groupthink? Well, sadly, that's never really been myself. I just kind of hide in the background and be like, all right, I don't want to get involved in this shit. I think a lot of people prefer that. I'm not a confrontational person. Never been in a fight in my life. Thankfully, I say that like as a good thing. Although there's the whole Fight Club thing, like you don't know yourself until you've been in a fight, man. You don't really know who you are until you experience a fist fight. But yeah, I'm a non-confrontational person, so I kind of stay away from any kind of conflict like that and just want to disappear. Like sometimes I would, in my younger days when I was calling in to like talk radio shows, the handful of times, sometimes I would want to get involved in a political discussion like that. But not anymore. I think the way everything is now is so toxic where people can just make up shit anyway without you even saying what your opinion is. And that's the part of censorship that scares me the most, why I'm so against any kind of censorship. Because it becomes a fear of saying something, of speaking truth. Even if your truth is completely illogical, you shouldn't be afraid to put it out there so somebody else with more knowledge can say, you have a point, but what about this? And then you can have a real civilized discussion about whatever the fuck, instead of people just playing judge and jury and executioner, which is what that cancel culture shit morphed into. It's just a method of witch hunt or a groupthink against anyone who's not a part of the team. That's what it becomes when you speak of groupthink and all that shit. And it's just, it doesn't help anybody. It doesn't help the people getting canceled, and it doesn't help the people coming after these people. Because your cause is just going to get diluted as you put, as more bullshit becomes a part of your cause or whatever. It's not going to help anybody. It hurts the person being hunted and the witch hunters. They both get fucking burnt at the stake eventually. So yeah, it's a weird type of conversation here. I don't know why I went down this path. I guess because I'm reading a story about these primitive people. I don't know what their race is. I never say that with really any of my characters. But because it's an animation, yeah, I guess you feel more of a freedom to just, it's an animation and it's a comedy, and you feel like you have more of an imaginative landscape to put these little aspects of comedy in there, like McKenna's Stoned Ape Theory. I put like a 4-page dream sequence about that to talk about the war on drugs and why the healthcare industry is kind of corrupt at this point because of the billions of dollars you can make off this shit. I wouldn't have been able to put a scene like that, a dream sequence, if it wasn't an animation. And yeah, I guess people feel like because these aren't real people, they're animations, you could go a little farther. You can push the line a little farther. But yeah, nowadays, I don't think a lot of that shit would fly. Not speaking of my stuff. I don't think anything I've written would be considered that controversial like that compared to some of the examples I was saying before. Yeah, I'm trying to portray different themes in this story that connect to human civilization, but not in terms of race and nationality. This is just what would our ancestors look like? The planet of the apes. They didn't know where they were, but they ended up going back to Earth, and the apes took over. It's a similar thing. I could have disguised it more if I wanted to, and people would watch this movie and they think it's taking part in the past, in the caveman era, prehistoric man. But then I could have shown something where Lamb finds the vinyl record and they're like, wait a minute, I guess this is supposed to represent the future. Holy shit. Like, that's all the twist is, but it's not that great of a twist, and it's been done before. So in the very first scene, you see Lamb as a caveman, but he's carrying a bucket made out of plastic Pepsi bottles or whatever the hell you want to use. So you know right away that this is a universe from the future. We fucked up the earth with pollution and war and hating each other and conflicts and nuclear war, if that ever happens, or whatever the hell destroys our civilization. And these are the remaining ancestors trying to pick up the pieces, trying to start all over without knowing anything, completely blindly trying to start this game, reset humanity, and hopefully they can get to a better paradigm. Not to be as negative as I sound, like I say that a lot because the things that the news highlights is separating people by race and dividing people and causing these controversies, child pornography and Epstein, war, and then all these other things, layoffs and inflation and everything that Howard Beale talks about in Network. The Russians are coming. Fucking crime waves in the suburbs. Oh, this crazy shit. The new virus outbreak on a cruise ship. What is it this year? What is the new virus? The bird flu and whatever the fuck else. If you watch the news, there's maybe 5 seconds of a good story at the end. The first 30 minutes is just, you're gonna die, you're gonna die, you're gonna die, you're gonna die. And then at the end, oh, in other news, look at this, a chicken dancing with a baby. Isn't that precious? Everything's back to normal. Everything's good, America. Don't worry about the war. Don't worry about disease. Don't worry about your constitutional rights being... Now, I sound like Alex Jones now or somebody like that. Don't worry about your fucking constitution being eroded down to nothing. All your rights being shit out by bureaucrats. Yeah. You just watch this chicken dance with the baby and smile because life is good. So, yeah, that's the main reason I don't want to watch the news and shit like that, because it leads you down these really cynical paths that I'd rather not have more layers. I already have enough of that shit within me. All right, let me come back in a couple hours. I'll finish this and hopefully less of my stupid commentary.